Chica Gamer. Wasn't there, man. Come on, guys. No physical evidence. Smoking gun. Alright, one down, two to go. Bastards. Interesting logic. Anyway. Yeah. No way. Oh, wrong. Alright. I hate this one. Simon Says. Those yellow got me. Ooh. Flat out lane. Nope. The wrong one. She's doing test. Because your name's stupid. He's just like throwing random people out there. Yeah, maybe yell, maybe lie. You won. Good deal. Alright, so before we get to this, let's search something else up here. Hello, hello, whoever's lurking out there. Oh yeah, let me check the sound over here.
Hey, Brother D here. I'm going to mention here some controversial things here. I just got done watching a video here on YouTube.
Oh, howdy.
I just got done watching a video.
Pause the wrong one. I see John Lovell here. And Smokey Bears. I did not see it show up while I was gaming there. Sorry. Are you on drugs? If you are not on drugs, then maybe you should go to the doctor. Yeah, maybe. I might need more drugs in my life. Smokey Bear says I am breaking up and the music is overpowering me. Uh-oh. Alright, well, it was just a... I'll go back and look at that later and see what happened. But,
some controversial YouTube things here. I just got done watching a video.
That's the wrong one. I see John Lovell here. Okay, and it seems like my mic is alright, so I'll just leave that for later. Okay, good. So we're all on the same page. Good stuff.
It's no secret that the world of gospel music has seen countless iconic voices
rise to prominence, leaving behind a legacy of faith, talent, and inspiration. But what if we told you that some of your favorite gospel legends, the ones whose songs moved millions and whose stories shaped the genre, were living with a truth that wasn't always shared with the public? In this video,
I have been taking some vitamins recently. I don't usually take vitamins, and then my mom, she kind of was insisting that I need to take vitamins, and she started bringing me a bunch of vitamins. But I do feel, a little bit like boosted, or whatever, from the vitamins. I'm not taking nearly, like all what she gave me, but I took some of them, and it does seem to have a positive effect. So I don't know.
we're going to dive deep into the lives of 15 gospel legends you might not have known were gay. 1. James Cleveland.
Okay, so what the
What the fuck was that? Was some random ass bullshit on gossip?
what the video is about is it's about people. How many people? 15 gospel legends you didn't know were gay.
Oh, so
this
not so random. Okay.
Video goes out to both those that are gay, trans, struggling with gay or trans, and those that are Christian.
Wait, so you didn't know we're gay or trans? Okay, got it.
Because I was just watching a video by Nick Jones yesterday where Trump said that we might be facing the end of the world. And
That's hilarious. Of course he would. Trump would push. He wants to, enrich his billions during the end times.
And
So
Nick Jones looked up the scripture in Matthew chapter 24. Actually, the whole chapter of Matthew 24 talks about the last days. Antichrist will come. There will be a falling away of the faith. And, they will give us up. They will kill us. The love of many will grow cold. And, you line that up with Romans chapter 1. Okay. And you see yourself going somewhere else as well. Now, my issue is, well, it's not issue, but my position is that this is my position.
your position might be an issue. So hold on there. Don't get.
I can do
cart in
whatever
front of the horse, as they say.
I want to do. I can be gay.
Uh-oh.
I can be trans. I can smoke weed like everybody else. I can be an alcoholic, a drunk. I can break the law, and say the cops need to get a grip. I can speak. I can do. I can be speeding under the influence of alcohol. And I can tell the cops to get a life if they pull me over, and I can accuse
Well, yeah, you can do that. You could always do that. That was never.
them of, playing the race card, or, trying to, stop me because I'm black while driving, or whatever. It's a free country. I can do whatever I want to do. I can hate Donald Trump. I can love Donald Trump. Okay? I can do whatever I want to do. But I don't need God to do it. I don't need God to do what I want to do. I need God for godly things. I don't need God for what I want to do. My personal feelings, my personal sexual desires, my personal anger, resentment, pain, you know, and I say I'm going to deal with this pain, or I'm going to deal with what happened to me, or whatever. I'm going to deal with the way people treat me, or whatever. I'm going to deal with it the
So
way...
he's like harkening back to that old Christian idea that like we don't actually, like, our lives are only valuable, right? Like, we only exist to serve and please the God of the Bible, right? Like, that's the only reason that we're even here, is like to be like sinful and imperfect and then come into service and live for the Lord and all that bullshit. And it sounds like, to them it sounds great or whatever, I guess, but it just sounds like a really bizarre set of circumstances where God would create people to have this, you know, amazing like variety of experiences, so many possibilities out there, but there's only one correct answer, and the correct answer is basically to devote your life, devoting your life to service, right? And being in service in this way is supposed to be like the only worthy cause. And out of so many possibilities, right? It's really weird that you would just land on this one that's just self-perpetuating, right? It's like it's a dog chasing its tail.
I deal with it. If I'm going to do what I want to do, if I'm going to do everything my way, according to my feelings, my appetites, I don't need God to do it. I don't need to be religious, and I definitely don't need to be no Christian. If I'm going to do what I want to do, an atheist understands this. If he's going to do what he's going to do, if it's all about him and the way he wants to do it, no sacrifice and no compromise, he doesn't need God. Because that's you without God, and you're still without God the minute you mention God.
Yeah, okay.
It irks me that people feel that they need to justify homosexuality by putting a little Jesus ring to it and calling themselves Christians, become a bishop of a church.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's arguable, you know, it's like that whole, it's like the Brokeback Mountain scenario. Like, you know, Jesus and the apostles all traveling around together, you know, sleeping together. They might have been, you know, like sleeping together, you know. Jesus may have been a gay man, for a trans man, for all we really know, you know.
And increase the religious LGBTQ people of America. Increase them, build them up, make them bigger and larger. While there is the actual Christians that have been born again, that have passed from death into newness of life. We were once atheists. We were once fornicators, homosexuals, drunkards, you know, fight pickers, troublemakers.
My awesome life says, oh, okay, now I get what this rant is about. Yeah, is God still anti-gay? Is the title of the video, or is God still a homophobe? You know.
Bullies. We were once weed smokers. Okay, crackheads. Driving recklessly, driving while drunk, getting pulled over by the police for things that we are allegedly, obviously wrong about.
Allegedly. Just throw that in.
Okay? But when we became Christians, when we were born again, as the Bible says, old things have passed away. Behold, all things have become new. It doesn't matter if I was gay. I ain't gay no more. Doesn't matter if I was a fornicator. Ain't no women gonna be alone with me in my house anymore. It doesn't matter. Okay, my girlfriend's not gonna live with me. My girlfriend had to.
Wait. So is he? I mean, is he? That's like hyperbolic, right? He's not saying that he can't have a woman in his house and not fuck her, right? Like, is that, or is it just the appearance of? Like, it doesn't matter. It's like about what the neighbors think or something.
Move out. It doesn't matter what we were doing that we felt we've done no wrong. We're doing what we feel is right, we want to do. But it's just like when you become a police officer or a military person. You have to shave. You have to get in shape in order.
Somewhat true. I mean, they have different grooming standards in like various police departments and branches of military and stuff. It really depends on what you're. I mean, like initially, yeah, when you go through like basic training, everybody kind of gets stripped down to like, you know, clean shaven crew cuts, right? But then once you get out there into your platoon, right, like your commanding officer might have a different standard for what they want. And then I see a lot of cops with mustaches and, you know, I mean, I think probably, you know, you need some seniority or something in the department to be able to grow it out, but they do let cops grow out facial hair around here. Yeah, I see it fairly regularly.
To pass basic training, you can't go out to war without discipline. You can't go out to war without looking the part. You got to shave. You got to practice other hygiene maneuvers. You have to know how to fight. You got to know
hygiene maneuvers. That's a new one. I'm putting that in my Rolodex. Hygiene maneuvers. It's in my dictionary now.
How to use a knife, a gun. You got to know how to swim. You have to know how to swim deep. You got to know how to jump out of stuff, jump into stuff, climb into a foxhole, climb the mountain. At least you used to anyway. You got to know how to do all that. It's the same way with Christianity. It's the same way with knowing the Lord.
Is it?
You want the Lord, you got to play your role. You got to play the part. You got to sever your old...
Oh, my awesome wife says, I went to church once. Yeah, I've been to a few myself. DeRoy, he doesn't go to church. He has his own interpretation of the Bible. As far as I remember, or he stopped going to the church he was going to. I don't remember. It's been a while. We've been listening to this guy for a while. Just on these weird tangents. Oh, you deleted that? Well, it was still up on screen, so sorry. I ended up reading it anyway. When you put a comment up through Prism, it goes up on the screen for 2 minutes automatically, even if you retract it. So everybody in the chat out there knows that.
Okay? There ain't nothing but alpha males in the kingdom of God. Ain't no pretty boys. Ain't no boys in there talking more than women. Running their mouth. Except to preach the gospel. Okay? You gotta change your sexual appetites. If you don't like your gender, you need professional counseling, because you're not going to stand before God in a different...
Oh, I see that. Just on a side note, I'm looking at my chat box now, and I need to fix that. So, my bad. It looks kind of funky down there, but whatever. I changed the chat style from the original. I'm not too happy with it.
In a gender that you are not. Whatever you,
Okay, now he's talking about the actual stuff here.
because you're not going to stand before God in a different in a gender that you are not. Whatever you're
So, all right, you're not going to stand before God in a gender you're not. So he's saying if somebody is trans, they transition, right? And they come back, and then God's got to be like, oh, wait, you didn't come back exactly the way I made you. And I'm like, hold on. So, like, people get, does that apply to anybody who ever gets a physical alteration or, any type of, like, modification? Like, you have to have surgery, say you have, like, huge tits and you have a breast reduction or something, right? And it's cosmetic, I guess, but it's for your health. Say it's like affecting you, it's giving you back problems because you got huge boobs, and and so you get a breast reduction, right? So you don't end up with a bad back. Is God going to get mad about that, or is it only, like, under what circumstances is it permissible? What about people with tattoos? And then, beyond that, it's like, okay, why is God going to judge anything you did to the physical body if the physical body is just a vessel for the soul? Wouldn't it be about, like, the purity of the soul? Like, it wouldn't matter what you did to the body as long as the soul remained godly, right? Like, that seems like the thing that would matter to God, because, like, the body isn't going to be there. You're going to meet God in the spirit, right? Not in the flesh. So I don't know. That just doesn't make sense to me. Like, why he would care whether people transition their gender or not.
gender is biologically, that is the gender you will stand before God in. And if you think opposite,
Is it? Is it the gender you will stand before God? Does God get to see your gender in the spirit?
of what God understands to be your gender, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Again, in closing, you can do whatever you want to do. You can.
Deroy, you're supposed to say in closing, like at the end of the video. This is a 38-minute video. He says in closing. Are you done with his argument? Are you just, this is all you were going to say about that?
Be Democrat or Republican. You can be the worst Republican I ever met. You can be the most sinful Democrat I ever met, the most liberal Democrat I've ever met. You just think everybody's okay. Let everybody in here. Let everybody practice their sexual appetites and make us legislate them. Okay, just do.
Wait, what? He's like, let everybody in here? The people you're talking about are already here. It's not like they're fucking trans people flooding to the U.S. for,
What do you want to do?
that I'm aware of.
That's one thing. We all have to suffer because you want to do what you want to do. You want to go out on the street looking like that. You want to go out on the street dressing like that. You want to say the wrong things to the wrong people and almost get yourself shot. You want to hit on the wrong person's kid or hit on the wrong kid or whatever. Whatever you do and get accused of being a sex offender. You want to go in the bathroom, in a ladies' bathroom, just to piss men off. Because
That's always what it is. It's always against trans women too. Like, they never make this argument with trans men, right? It's always trans women are really just men who want to go peek around in women's bathrooms. That's all they're doing it for.
ain't giving you none.
And not even like to fulfill their own fantasies or something, just to piss men off. In your mind, like, they just want to do it to get under your skin for no other reason, right?
So you want to go in there and use the ladies' restroom, take it out on their kid.
Take what out on a kid? What are you talking about? Who's doing it? Who's doing something to a kid?
And you
Hey, Viking Silverwolf, good to see you. Welcome.
pissing people off. People are about to shoot you and go to jail for it. People are about ready to. You making everybody want to be a terrorist. Okay?
No, see, we're not, they, trans people who are in the LGBTQ plus community are not making bigots do anything. Bigots are reacting however they're going to react, just to other people just being themselves. So that's they're not. There's no there's no fight here. It's just bigots attacking people that they disagree with or don't understand, as usual. Like, that's just what they do. They just lash out.
Flaunting your ignorance and your immaturity all over the place. You sit there and you say, don't judge us. Don't judge us. But then you say, but then you go to a pride parade and you. So this gay pastor was asked if he believed that people that participate in pride parades, especially, you know, the performance, the parade, and all that kind of stuff.
And see, this is really why he's mad. This is how he started the video. It's actually about these gay preachers and gay like musicians. I guess I think he said some of the Christian musicians or something had come out. Some Life says, I love pride parades. I've never been to one myself. Like, I've been in the area when it was going on, but I never actually participated in the parades. Looks like fun. Looks like a bunch of craziness, but, you know, that's cool. And John Lovell says, there is a secular moral concept of evil, which is distinct from fictional concepts of the Christian dumb ideas. Yes, exactly. And, you know, we could call evil, we could even like tone that down to be like, this is not socially acceptable, you know? All right, we'll go together, Mouse and Life.
And he said, yes, he does support everything that's LGBTQ. You know, and it's weird because there's a lot, you don't know who's who in the LGBTQ community. You know, gay don't make you innocent any more than being an atheist makes you innocent. Like, you know what I'm saying? You know, okay, you got two men that are gay. Okay, that doesn't mean that both of them are criminals. But one of them might be into sleeping with underage boys.
And neither of them might be. Like, you just, what? Why would you even make that assertion? You don't, where'd you get that idea from?
One of them might be that kind of person.
But so might be a straight man. I mean, that's, a straight man is actually probably more likely to be involved in some kind of devious, unacceptable behavior that you would be talking about here.
Goes around hitting on other men.
John Lovell says some things that people do need a word like evil to describe that person's actions. Well, like the stuff he's talking about. Yeah, got your H there, Betty. I was like, are we doing this with a Jamaican accent? No, and so he he needs to describe like the worst possible thing that a person could be doing, of course. And that's not, you know, that's pretty common for these guys. They don't even know any gay people, and they're like, oh, well, they must be up to no good, you know. And then they're like, oh yeah, straight people do that too. Straight people probably do that more. Or, you know, allegedly straight people, because obviously if somebody is, you know, interested in children at all, or children of the same sex, then they have, you know, some other psychological thing, you know, sexual deviance, right, that goes beyond even just being gay, right? That's a deeper level as an understanding. There's a like a gradation of sexual deviance. You know, there's like people that consensually participate in BDSM, you know, and by and large, most of those people aren't people who would go out and commit sexual violence, right? Like in a non-consensual setting. So, but the people who would do that are pretending to be straight and Christian, you know, outwardly. So, you know, that's all I'm saying.
Ain't thinking about him or thinking about being gay.
John says, then there are the chicken fuckers. That's funny. My ex's mom, when I was in high school, called me chicken fucker one time just to poke fun at me. It had something to do with my mohawk, and she started calling me chicken fucker. And my ex reminded me of that like a couple years ago. Got back in touch. She was like, "Do you remember when my mom called you chicken fucker?" Yeah, she would always call me that. How you doing, chicken fucker? I'm like, all right.
Okay? My point is, we want the world to, and let me ask you this. Why do the LGBTQ community, as time goes forward and forward and forward, why do the LGBTQ community feel that they have to be out on the street with their colors and putting up signs?
Because everybody else can do it. Like literally every other group of people can do that, so why can't they? Right? Like if the KKK can march through Los Angeles, why can't the gays have a parade in San Francisco? What's wrong with that?
Looking for reasons to protest so that they can let everybody know who they are. Now, if they're doing that because they feel that they are a minority and they purposely, honestly just
Good morning, Miss Pixie. Good to see you.
do what they do to run into other gay people. Is that what the flag is for? If you put the flag in the window, you put the colorful flag in the window, it's to connect with other gay people?
Yeah, I mean, if you do it on 4th of July, then you're just connecting with a bunch of fellow patriots, right? That's what we're here for.
Because you feel that the world is so anti-gay, so you always need to have something on you or have a flag somewhere or be wearing something or have something on your hat or your shirt or your blouse, your pants, whatever, to show the world that you're gay, so you are connected. I can understand it, even though we Christians don't feel that we have to wear Christian.
Yeah, they're marching in unity, connecting with each other, displaying, you know, their identity, right, in a way that is public, which is all protected by the First Amendment, for sure.
Christian T-shirts to make sure all the Christians know who we are.
John says transporting underage chickens across state lines. Yeah.
Okay, we don't have to wear, jewelry or hats that say, even all Trump supporters. And I ain't crazy enough to wear anything Trump in Pittsburgh. That's a lynch mob waiting to happen. Okay.
Yeah, see, he thinks if he goes out and he displays, even though he's like on YouTube, espousing it, he thinks if he goes out in his hometown and like wears a MAGA hat, like they're gonna freaking lynch him, which is, absolutely ridiculous. Like he might get laughed at, or something.
Okay. Anywhere in Pittsburgh, even up
It was
here.
a delusion of being oppressed, You're like, oh, I gotta be oppressed somehow. Trump supporting black
It's
man.
a nice little town. It's a lynch mob waiting to happen. Okay? But Why do gay people feel that they always have to express that they're gay?
John said, Jesus is very unhappy with the chicken fuckers. I mean, I guess I don't know why he would be right. Like, Adam was a chicken fucker, wasn't he? Like, the first man. Isn't that the theory that he went around and he copulated with all of the animals before he decided he wanted a woman? Right? I don't know. I've heard that theory, and I'm like, okay. The weird shit that Christians believe. Some Christians believe that, Adam fucked all the animals first. And then he was like, you know what, why don't you just make, like, one of me that I could fuck, like, sort of, like, and then, yeah.
And if they get pulled over by the police, is it because I'm
Hey, Cosmic Kyle, welcome. Good to see you.
gay? Oh, the place is closed. Why didn't I know that? Is it because I'm gay? Why can't I go in this way? Why I gotta go in the other door? Is it because I'm gay? I'm glad I don't do that job anymore. I'm tired of that, okay? But anyway, in closing.
He just said in closing for the second time in this video. And we're like halfway through or something. That's not how that works, bro. You don't just keep saying in closing. You haven't even like formulated like a one of those things, structure, premise 1, premise 2. Like, that's not how this works. In closing.
Too much of expressionism exposes who you really are and what your agenda is. Because I've one thing I know about gay people, it's a fact. They want to create gay people. They don't want to just find the gay people.
Gay people want to create gay people. The people that say they are just born gay are actively trying to recruit new gays, apparently. Yeah.
They want to create gay people. I'm 58 years old. And you put me in a room with 2 gay men, they're going to try to groom me.
I don't think that's not what grooming even means. You're just saying that you're that attractive that, put you in a room with any random 2 gay men and they're going to try to hit on you? Is that what you mean? Are you afraid of getting hit on by gay men? Math Pig streaking through the chat. Hello, welcome. John Lovell says gay missionaries from hell. Yeah, that's what they'd be. That's about right.
Not always, but more often.
Is this a Dragnot stream? No, I was just checking in on his channel earlier, though. I happen to have... So I have a couple of videos that are not publicly available on the channel anymore, but they happen to be saved into my Watch Later playlist. And I thought about going back and watching them, because I miss those old Dragnot streams. I was like, oh yeah, it's like a 3-hour stream I was checking out last night. Anyway, it's either here nor there, I guess.
Didn't like.
Yeah, I think drag is how I originally heard about this guy.
Not.
And as well as Lord Patriarchy. I'm still watching him because Dragnot was talking about him, and specifically he was like, well, I don't, whatever you're saying basically was like, no, this guy would be a good person for somebody to cover actively. So I've still been watching a lot of his stuff to kind of look into. But it's hard because he just rages out most of the time, so it's hard to figure out when he's actually making an argument or when he's just, emotionally reacting to stuff.
They will try to groom me. They will try, and if they open up their mouth to be nice to you in any way, and you don't come out as, oh, I'd like to meet gay, I want to get to know you because you are gay, not because you're a nice person, not because we have music in common, not because we have fixing cars in common, or not because we have skincare or cologne or motorcycles or
So
anything.
yeah, he's making this assumption right now that you couldn't possibly share any of these common interests with somebody who's trans or homosexual. Like that's ridiculous, right? Like, and ideally, that's probably how you would meet this person. Like, you're putting yourself in this scenario where you're like in this, like, it's just me stranded on an island with two homosexuals or something. It's like, oh, I don't, and all they would want to do is to fuck you, right? Like you wouldn't find out that you had any of these other common interests if you actually communicated with them in some capacity, right? So this tells you this person's never actually interacted with any gay people, right? Because if he had, he would know that that's not the way it works. John Lovell says, it is hard to be rational if you do not make the effort. I agree with that to some extent. Yeah. You have to, well, I think the effort is to push back against those like base emotions, right? Anytime you start to have some kind of emotional response to the people around you, the situation around you, you should check that, right? Because that's when you're probably going to act irrationally. Is when you just react to that gut response. You don't sit and think about why that's happening, or give it a minute to subside. Hey, Halcyonic Kaiju, good to see you. Good to see you, Halcy.
In common, except the idea that you want me to like you because you're gay, not because you're a good person.
I think that's the opposite of what any gay person would say. Like, gay people would be like, no, I want you to accept me for who I am, right? Just like anybody else. You don't even have to like me, just accept me for who I am and treat me decently. And, that's what equality
But
is.
it has to be because you're gay. If I skip right over the fact that you're gay, I'm probably gay. Next thing you know,
What? How the fuck? If I skip over the fact that you're gay, then I'm probably gay? Like, if sexuality isn't at the top of our conversation, then I'm somehow also secretly homosexual? I haven't addressed the fact that you might be homosexual. I don't know that. I'm just assuming that. That's so strange. Like, what is he saying? John says you have to ask if your emotions are overboard or underboard. Yeah. To assess the severity of the situation. What's the appropriate response? And John Lovell says, I have such a hard time asking myself this question at the right times. That's the trick, is to condition yourself to stop and ask it first, so that when that moment comes, you're prepared for it, right? And this is the same thing like soldiers do for combat. You just condition yourself, and every time you're in that situation, and you do it like in a controlled environment, so when you're out in the real world, dealing with stuff, it comes second nature. But it takes a lot of effort, a lot of training.
D-Roy's gay. Jonathan's gay. Louis is gay. Why? Where'd you get that impression from? Oh, because they did. Oh, I'm enjoying your blouse. You wanted them to appreciate that you were gay instead of the fact that you could do your job, the fact that you do a good job, the fact that you're very polite, you're a nice person, a good moral person. No. Everything has to be about you being gay.
This is so Freudian, right? Like, this is all him. He's just, you can see he doesn't ever have to. He like sees this shit on the news and he's like, oh my god, look at these gays, they're all up in my face. They're on the news. I can't get away from them. Probably watching Fox News. Like, is this affecting you personally, sir? Why are you offended? John says, I will try to get that habit. I will make an effort. Yeah, do it. Check out mindfulness, Any type of mindfulness teachings, it's all kind of the same thing. Like bringing you back to that center.
Relatives of mine, they don't want me to skip over the fact that they're gay. They want me to change my views, my Christian views about homosexuality.
There it is. Yes, they are actively trying to change your views. If you have a gay relative, apparently, according to him, I don't know. He says that he has gay relatives who are actively trying to change his Christian views about homosexuality. So there may be a kernel of truth. See? And maybe you should consider changing your views about homosexuality. I don't know. Just a thought. John said, I think that is called thinking. No, that's called doing. Cognitive stuff? Oh, yeah. Well, first there's the cognitive stuff, but then there's the first part and then the second part. So you got to think about it before you can do it.
They want me to change them Christian views, even though I treat them like family. Hugs and kisses. I have no problem with them, their boyfriends, their girlfriends. I have no problem.
So you know that you can shine them on, but in reality, they know that you really think they're going to hell and they're doing evil, right? And so they're trying to, change your mind about that. So they want to convince you that even though they are gay, they can still be good and decent people who can treat you right and have other interests that have nothing to do with them being gay and all these things that you, right? So it's like you're just not comprehending. you don't seem to be comprehending what is being taught to you here. John Lovell, can I believe and then do it? Miles to Life says, dude's in the closet. Yeah, I would say that's a solid theory. He's fighting his own demons.
I come in, I hug everybody, but there's a distance there because they know, and I kind of appreciate it, but they know that I serve an anti-gay God.
Not only does he not approve of homosexuality, but he is anti-gay. Hey, John Fabiano, good to see you.
God is still anti-gay. God is still anti-trans and anti-lesbian and anti-effeminate.
Anti-effeminate. Let's think in for a moment. Anti-effeminate. John says he is a batshit crazy Christian. I agree with you there.
Be effeminate as long as you're growing out of it. Anyone that has effeminate qualities like that and he's not becoming, more hairy, so to speak, over time, I believe he...
John says this is your favorite topic? Wait, what?
He's undercoverly gay. Okay? But you don't have to include God. These are the facts. Whatever you want to do if your country permits you to do it, if it is a part of our American culture or whatever culture you come from, if they support, this is what people love about the Philippines. You go over to the Philippines, gay people stay in their place. They have one place where they go out. They go out to the streets during red light time, and they are on one side of the street and the females are on the other side of the street, and they're both.
So what you're talking about is segregating. So I understand that you're saying you want segregation, but we in the U.S. we agreed against that a long time ago. Like and the red light thing is for prostitutes, as far as I know. That doesn't have anything to do with gay and trans. That's for sex workers. John Level says he got hit in the head with a Bible. John Fabiano says this guy has definitely sticking things up his butt. he's tried it. He's over there in the demographic of dudes watching gay porn. For sure. John Level says he is a superstitious human. Monkey man. And this last comment. Oh, not seeing. Oh, he got hit in the head with something. I don't know if it was a Bible though. I think he got. It means to say dickwit. Yeah.
Are there to pick up men, and usually there's enough men to go around. Okay, especially when you're a trans woman.
So YouTube is auto censoring some of this stuff. It looks like so. Just it's the YouTube chat that's finicky. Careful there.
In Asia, for a lot of foreigners, being away from their families and being in a place where nobody can see what they're doing, it's almost 100% hard to resist. And a lot of times, prostitution is prostitution. The girls on the other side of the street don't care. If you walk down the street holding hands with a trans woman, or if you do it right in the middle of the street, they don't care. It's all game. Just don't.
Well, sex workers are just more desensitized in general, right? But they also actually have firsthand experiences with the people that you're talking about, right? There's some overlap in the LGBTQ plus community with sex workers, where they have more firsthand experiences, and there's actually a sense of trust and unity there, right? Because they're both oppressed by people like you, who feign oppression somehow by people that you have oppressed. I don't know.
Get up tomorrow and come to her with that bisexual garbage and think you're gonna sleep with her because she was looking at you first, but the gay dude got you first because he actually put his hands on you and pulled you off the street and pulled you behind the wall or whatever, and you looked at him, you said, wow, okay. And a woman, like always,
says he is an authoritarian. He obeys authority. Yeah, and all these fundy Christians are authoritarian in that aspect, right? It's God's authority, on God's authority. But yeah, as somebody pointed out like a long time ago, it's a powerful means of control. If you're just trying to mind fuck somebody, right? Frankly. And tell them, well, how did you receive these orders? Invisible man in the sky told me. He controls the weather and shit. And then if you could actually convince people of that, I mean, that's a powerful means of control. Like, he's gonna curse your soul forever. Better do what he says. That's the ultimate authoritarianism. You don't even have to have the gun. He's gonna rain lightning on you. He's gonna flood the earth. He's gonna kill all the babies. He can do whatever he wants. He's a maniac, but he loves us. John says it was probably my comment. I'll be polite to the bigotry. No, yeah, no bigotry. I'm just saying that YouTube is picky about it. So we're not, it says, like, some of them aren't even showing up. They will show up through Prism, it appears, on the screen. But YouTube is holding them for review, and sometimes I saw one, I think, from My Awesome Life that was deleted. So not by us, but by YouTube.
Take your time. They want you to be the man and ask for what you want. Whereas the trans woman is going to tell you what you want. And some men are so effeminate or so beta male that they allow that to happen.
Beta? Why is Ape hating on Jesus? Well, I just don't know if the guy actually existed yet.
Okay. And in a foreign country where you don't know how people are going to react, a lot of...
But I've heard theories, I've heard that Jesus, may have been a gay dude, may have been a trans dude. I don't know. Could be. We don't really have enough information to say that he wasn't.
You don't want to just walk off and say, hey man, leave me alone. Or hey lady, I'm not interested. I don't have a problem with that. I don't care where I am at. I didn't come to visit your country, okay, for you to change the course of my sexuality or change what my Christian beliefs are. I can keep my Christian beliefs to myself in your country. But one thing you won't do is you won't disrespect my Christian beliefs, even in your own country, unless I throw my Christian beliefs in your face. But if I don't want to participate in anything immoral, that is not a slap in the face to your country. That's not a slap.
Huh? So, what? How? So who? So nobody's being oppressed. You're just like, right? I can't wait. He's like. Let me listen to that again, because that was kind of unintelligible.
My Christian beliefs are. I can keep my Christian beliefs to myself in your country, but one thing you won't do is you won't disrespect my Christian beliefs, even in your own country, unless I throw my Christian beliefs in your face. But if I don't want to participate in anything immoral, that is not a slap in the face to your country. That's not a slap in the face to your people. Again, you can do whatever you want to do as long as your country legalizes it. That's America.
So so if your country legalizes it, then you can legally do it. That doesn't make it moral, right? That doesn't make it good. Like, just because something is legal doesn't necessarily make it good. Like, what type of argument are you making here? You're not even arguing for the Bible. You're just like, well, yeah, just do whatever the state says is legal. I mean, yeah.
That's Asia, that's Africa, that's Europe, the UK, Russia, you name it. Whatever country you live in, if they justify what you do, they justify what you do. But that is separate from who God is and what God says that we can do.
Yeah, totally. John Lovell says, the only time one certain God is seen is in a book called the Bible. Yeah, and there was like the fan fiction they wrote after that, right? But there's the one they wrote the first time, and then the Bible, like the modern Christian one, is part of the fanfic, right? They just included they included part 2 with part 1. It was like a box set. And then they got the part 3, which hasn't like officially been included because it kind of contradicts the first 2 parts. But hey, who cares, right? And then there's those other spin-offs, John Fabiano says, this poor sad guy, he's thinking so wrong-headed. Yeah, he's extremely conditioned in his way of thinking. And he seems like the type of person who probably like has Fox News playing in the background all night while he's sleeping or something, John Lovell says, after Jesus turned into a zombie, why did he go live up in the sky and not stay here on Earth? Because he doesn't like us. We're a bunch of stupid sinners.
There is no reason to come to God unless you are going to make the necessary sacrifices.
The box set, yeah.
That's the whole point. That's the whole joy. And a lot of Christians would even disagree with me. You say, oh, well, you don't have to make sacrifices to be saved. They ain't even saved yet. Okay. How long are they going to be saved and don't make no sacrifices, sir? They're going to be gay the whole time they was a Christian? It's one thing if you was gay the day that the Spirit of the Lord called you to salvation. It's another thing to be gay 20 years after that. And then you just get up there and put on an LGBTQ scarf, LGBT hat, LGBTQ, and some S's and I and the O's and whatever, vowel sounds.
I figured it out. Like, really, he's mad because, like, earlier he was saying, like, he doesn't have the balls to, like, walk around his neighborhood in his MAGA hat, right? But these gay people are, like, all over the street with pride flags. And he's just so offended that they can just utilize their free speech in public. Like, who would do that, Because he thinks he'll get strung up and lynched if he does it,
You stole the whole alphabet and now you're going in the numerical system, okay? You do this. And then what bothers me about these bishops that are coming into the church, what bothers me more than the fact that they're calling themselves bishops, pastors, and also being gay, is that they're not just gay because of what they feel the Lord has allowed them to do, which we all know. You're a joke, lady. You're a joke, dude. Lord ain't allowing you to do squat. You just too lazy and don't understand what Christianity is all about. But they don't stop there. They have to support the whole LGBTQ community. So you mean to tell me when you're having a pride parade and you got men up there in chains and with whips and stuff and wearing lingerie and stuff and hitting each other with a whip, okay, and all like that, that's okay for the bishop?
Yeah, I mean, the bishop can do whatever he wants, technically, right? Like, wouldn't that be like, I mean, if you can get forgiven, for raping, murdering people, then what if this dude, like, went out in public and, got whipped or something, I guess, at a parade, like, hypothetically, like, what's the, I mean, who's, it's just him making a spectacle of himself, right? You can't go repent for that. Oh, My Awesome Life said, Jesus is my homie. Oh, wait, no, I missed a couple before that. John Fabiano said, you can see the pain in his eyes and his lackadaisical posture. Yeah, and just asking for a friend. He is gay crazy. Why does he care? John Fabiano says, because he is fighting his attraction. Yeah, I think he might be very closeted. Hillary's emails. Howdy, good to see you. My Awesome Life says, the bishop likes it too. He prays, please don't burn me, Mr. Jesus. I'd agree with that, John. Afraid to go to hell for his feelings. He's repressing. Yeah. All of this is his own hangups, as it is with most Christians, right? They're projecting their own bullshit onto other people. They are creating enemies in their heads because the Bible says that there's an enemy out there. They got to be out looking out for it.
You know, Marcus Rogers talked to these gay dudes, and they said they agree with everything. They agree with the whole LGBTQ community, okay, including gay pride and transgenderism. It's all good for God. It's all good for the church. Wait a minute. So what you're doing is you became a pastor or a bishop, and not one single thing about your life has changed. Not because I wanted to change, because I might be uncomfortable with gay people, but because Christianity, being saved, being born again, is a changing process. If there's no change, what did you get saved from?
I would ask, yeah, I'd say that's actually a good question. What are you being saved from? He's talking about all of this LGBT plus while laying face down on his belly. And he does most of his videos in this position, I think, from what we've seen.
Do homosexuals get saved from if they're not saved from homosexuality? Whatever separates you from God in the first place, that is what you will leave at the altar. But no, they're not just getting up there and, well, we're waiting for the day when they're no longer gay. But you can be saved and struggle with homosexuality, you know, when you first get saved. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a growing process, right? But
Wait. So you can be gay for a little while and be Christian, but you just gotta, after a while, you gotta stop the gay thing, right? Like that's, oh boy, this is really something here. Okay.
How you gonna sit there and tell me, oh, LGBTQ, yes, Pride Parade, yes, transgenderism, and trans children, and men going into ladies' bathrooms, and men playing women's sports, all that. It's all, we accept it all. Even after you said you were now a Christian, you accept all that. And you don't know.
Hillary says, maybe he means stop being gay in public, but in the bedroom is okay. He kind of alluded to something like that before this. And with the whole flags thing, like it's just like he doesn't, and he said, what was it? Oh, well, I just don't want you throwing your gay ideas at me, like keep your gay ideas over there or something, But he doesn't understand why his family members who are gay, apparently, according to him, right, his gay family members or relatives or whatever are actually trying to convince him that his position sucks, right? Because he secretly hates them and despises them, but to their face, he acts like it's all good. And he thinks that's the way that he should conduct himself, right? So he justifies, he says that's what he does. Oh yeah, to their face, I act nice, I smile, I give them a hug, But really, I think they're sinners who are going to hell, and God hates them, and I hate them too, And they know that, so they try to educate him, and then he becomes more resentful. He doubles down because that's what they do. Don't be fucking on the front yard, John Level says. My Awesome Life says people change as they grow in their deepened connection with God through their spirituality. Not because some Christians want them to. People pleasing will not get you to heaven. Yeah, that's very insightful. Yeah, exactly. And you should be God pleasing, not people pleasing, right? According to what they believe, if you believe the Bible. Hillary's email says, "But my front yard is a free fuck zone." Oh no. The dogs do it all the time.
These people's hearts just because they're gay. You don't know whether they're really victims or played a victim. You don't know if they're molesting kids. You don't know if
You
they're
don't know that about anybody. Again, he's making these assertions about gay or LGBTQ plus people, and he's just like, oh well, you don't know if they're molesting kids. You don't know what they're doing in there. Like, you don't know that about anybody. You can make the same assumption about any one of your neighbors, right?
you know, laden down with other burdens and sins other than just being gay. You don't know these people. Why are you justifying everybody? And that's my problem with this whole thing. I and many Christians around the world that understand the vibe, we understand the assignment. We sacrifice all for the sake of Christ. Okay? We sacrifice our race. We sacrifice our politics. We sacrifice mom, dad, children. Separate a family of five for the sake of Jesus Christ.
That's another very fundy view right there. It's like you have no identity outside of this, right? And that's another problem that they have with identifying, like, whether you might have other things in common with, with liberals or atheists, just for example, right? Because he's listing all these things earlier. He's like, well, I don't know this or this or this about you. You're just going to wave your dick in my face, right? Which isn't what people do. Like, by and large, that's not how it goes, right? But he himself, as a Christian, says, well, this has to be your core identity, right? All these other things don't matter. This comes first, right? So that's their way of thinking. So they're projecting that way of thinking onto other groups of people,
It says that in the Bible. Because what it's about is that sacrifice. I am no longer who I used to be, but I am who Christ has set me free to be. I am no longer who I used to be, even if that was good, even if it was good. But you got these homosexuals coming into the church with this chip on their shoulder. Oh, I'm not going to let nobody tell me I was ever bad. I'm not going to let nobody ever call what I do or what I used to do sin. So therefore you stay in that sin, and you got the nerve and the nastiness to call yourself a bishop, a saint, a pastor. You will not stand before God and God say, well done, faithful servant, if that's your attitude. We sacrifice everything about ourselves that is ungodly. We don't justify it, we sacrifice it. Hear me again. We don't justify it, we sacrifice it.
Cut it out. Just if it doesn't comport with your newfound belief, apparently, right? Because you have to be, like, at some point saved according to this type of doctrine, right? So I don't think young people can be incorporated into this type of doctrine, like what he's talking about, because you have to have a revelatory experience of your own. I've heard people say it, like extremists, they're like basically that, those kids will still, they have like a pessimistic view of those who are raised in religion because they don't have this revelatory experience. I don't know if DeRoy has actually had one of these types of experiences for himself, but it's like the AA view, basically, of Christianity. It's like you have to hit rock bottom before you can really be saved. If you have not sufficiently hit bottom, then you can't really be saved. But then you have to, denounce all the sin, which is basically like what they do with AA. It's like nothing I did was ever good if I was drinking. You know what I mean? And it's like the same thing. Well, if I didn't have Jesus, then nothing I did was ever good. It's the same kind of view they take on. Oh, thank you for lurking while working, John Fabiano. And thank you for being here in the chat. It's good to see you. This guy should hang out with Jesse Lee Peterson. Yeah. Another good one. I've got that in my watch later list as well, the He Black interview. Maybe we'll do that next. I don't know. We'll see. A question for another person in the chat. He gave up butt fucking for Jesus.
Now, if we sacrifice too much,
Yes, John Level. He gave up butt fucking for Jesus.
God can give something.
That's a story and he's sticking to it. You could still do it for a little while, but eventually you gotta stop the butt fucking.
Back. It's just like you giving somebody too much money. Here, take all my money. No. No, you need this for cab fare to get to my house tomorrow. Okay? If you sacrifice too much, you'll learn over time. God will give some back. But we sacrifice all for the sake of God, for the sake of the gospel, for the sake of deliverance, for the sake of the blood of Jesus Christ, the death, burial, baptism, and resurrection, the whole thing, we sacrifice because of it. We leave our sins, our politics, our burdens, our appetites, our flaws, everything at the altar. Not because you thought you was a sinner when you was gay, or thought you wasn't a sinner when you was gay, but because you know that if you want God, God ain't gay. Okay? And we're not bigots just because God delivered us from being like that. He delivered from some.
Does God even have a gender? I mean, aside from them putting the word him in there when they're talking about God, or I guess the connection to the Father, right? But is God a man? Is there any, do we think God is a man? Let's put that out there.
That's just as bad as being gay. Everybody that is a born-again Christian has sacrificed something because he was delivered from something. Let me say again. He has sacrificed something or many things because he's been delivered from many things.
Hillary says, God ain't gay. He just hung around 12 salty seamen and never touched a woman. Yeah. Black guy. John Fabian, no worries. John Level says, LOL, he looks serious. And yes, God is a man.
That is what salvation is all about. You don't walk in there and say,
God has a Holy Ghost dick.
oh, I'm gay. I'm LGBTQ. I'm transgender. I'm bringing all these people. All these people going to heaven. All these people are right with God. God is okay with all these people.
Well, hello, Todd. Good to see you. Good to see you. I was watching your stream this morning, as a matter of fact, yeah.
That is absolutely no salvation. Nothing born again about that at all. You figure if somebody is really, really gay and they really, really think that God justifies them being gay, they would be gay naked before God. And everybody, including their own lover, including all their other gay friends and any community that he's not involved in, you figure he would leave them out of the equation because he has this relationship.
Yeah, gay naked. As opposed to just regular naked. You gotta be gay naked. John Noble says it is a biology thing of how to make a God hybrid? God hybrid what?
God, though he be gay.
A God-man hybrid?
The relationship is real. But you see that the relationship isn't real when he has to include everything that he was already into. And now he's including even more of what wasn't even thinking about him. That's a worse sinner than he is. You can do whatever you want to do. But mark my words, you will not stand before God in good stead. God does not honor or respect your sin, your pride, your arrogance, your refusal to change, your lack of sacrifice, your lack of obedience, your ignorance, towards the scriptures. You saying that you can be a Christian without the Bible. That is total blasphemy. Total blasphemy and total treachery. You're a biblical Christian or you're no Christian at all. And you don't need God to be gay. You don't need God.
You don't need God to be gay? Wait, what?
To be a drug addict. You don't need God to be a
Okay.
fornicator, a prostitute. You don't need God to cheat on your spouse. You don't need God for anything but God. You don't need God for anything but God. Everything else.
You don't need God for anything but God. God just... So this is kind of like what I was saying earlier, right? Where the whole point is, like, you exist and you can have all of these, wild experiences here on Earth, and none of them matter, right? Because the whole point of all of this, the whole universe, is just for people to find a book and just, like, really, really admire God or something, like, and just do weird rituals and follow strange observances because the book says so, and the book talks about God. And it's just this really strange set of affairs where that y'all believe this. Some people believe this, right? That God would create people with his whole range of possibilities for their experience, just for them to stay in the dark ages, to resist science, to resist technology, to resist longevity, right? And then we say, oh, well, people used to be like 900 years old, right? But I'm not going to, take a vaccine, or I'm not going to, let them perform this surgery, right? Because, like, Christian Scientism and shit. Well, I'm just going to pray about it, and I'm just going to, So it's just like, we have all of this opportunity in front of us, but we're supposed to reject all of the opportunity because that's all temptation, right? That's all sinful, according to this guy. And yet, what would be the point of creating a world with all this opportunity for you to reject it, to reject the experience? Tog says Christianity without the Bible is just the tag argument. Yeah, I actually would be interested in discussing the tag argument with you. I heard you talking a bit about that earlier, Todd. I did not come into the stream, and I haven't. Well, I went into Projo's stream yesterday, and apparently my mic was all fucked up, so I had to leave. But that's why I haven't been really coming into the streams. But the last one we did together, I think, went okay. I still have it saved. I was gonna review that too. There were some things I wanted to comment on in there. John Lovell says this guy might drink too much. Me or DeRoy? No. It's possible. Anything is possible. Like that old school PS2 controller dude has mad taste. Or he's just broke. He is very emotional. Yeah. You could tell. He is passionate about that which he speaks, just not very knowledgeable. John Lovell also says many people are Christian that have not read the Bible. Yeah, that was kind of the topic that was being discussed over on Tog's channel earlier, and I heard you guys kind of like reviewing that, and I was thinking about how, so that was why I wanted to come in there, was because what he was saying, the essence of the argument was that, like, people know this one part and not this other part that maybe contradicts or puts it in a different context, right? And so people kind of quote mine the Bible, for things that they like, and then they don't know the flip side of it. And that's the argument that was being made in the video. It wasn't just that, like, oh, well, these, it's not just that it's not being taught thoroughly enough. I mean, most people really, like, it wouldn't be advantageous for most people to, like, go to seminary and learn all of this stuff, right? And the fact that we put so much money and effort into people doing this, right? We, like, subsidize them and stuff to promote training in that area, right, is taking away from something important they could be doing academically. When people can really have as long as they don't have some other financial burden, right, we can do this for free, right? We have all the information available to us to learn everything there is to know that's already, about the Bible, that's out there, right? You can do that for free. But people put, hundreds of thousands of dollars into this endeavor, to go to Bible school and all of that stuff, and to go to private Christian academies, for their kids. And so that was the question, was why most Christians don't know all this stuff, right? Because most Christians don't have the resources available. Most Christians are like DeRoy, and he's done his research. He may not be able to articulate his arguments well, but he knows what they are. Question for chat. Room to give another sub. Fideism. The Bibleism? We all know you drink too much, Abe. Thanks for that one. Appreciate it, my awesome life. Does fideism mean the same thing as superstition? Interesting question there. The Broja. Oh yeah, Broja's doing live streams over there. Somebody could put the link in the chat if they have it.
If you want it that bad, you can survive in this world without it. Because if you can't live without it, you're still gonna burn in hell. No matter if you come and put on a priest outfit or a choir outfit or a suit and tie or a collar or whatever, and get up there and call yourself a Christian, a bishop, a pastor, a priest, or whatever. Just because you do all that, that don't mean you're gonna pass go. That don't mean that you're gonna make it with God. God is going to punish you. Eventually, he's going to punish you. I'm out. God bless you. And see you soon with more. I haven't done anything on this channel for a while, so there you go.
Oop. I hit the button. I didn't mean to hit the button. All right. We'll be back in 2 minutes or so. I have to go do something real quick. Alright, so we'll go find some videos gonna watch here. Earlier we were talking about Jesse Lee Peterson, who I have not covered on here in a while. I think I've done it like once or twice. Not extensively, although I have watched a lot of his stuff. There is a playlist. If you go to my playlist, there is a playlist of my music that has some various stuff that I've done. If you want to go check that out, I think that one's in there. Yeah, so my music content is also available on SoundCloud and Bandcamp, and there's another site. Which one? Bandcamp, SoundCloud, Reverb Nation. Yeah, that's the one.
He black. They see me
Joel's
at
black.
church, they just say he black. I'm like,
It's even in the super chats.
He black. He black.
I just wanted to remind you that I'm calling from Canada and I am black.
He black.
Tom like a mug. You need to go and get yourself bleached.
It might sound like a semantics argument, but he's a gray alien.
I wonder if he been smoking pot. Amazing. That's the first time I heard that opening right now, folks. And Joel, you put that together?
yeah.
It's amazing. He black. Is America the last Christian nation? Is America the last Christian nation, Joel?
I don't even know what that mean.
He black.
A. Activille says, check your ego in formal education at the door. As you come in, remove your hat and have a seat. Then get ready for an amazing ride like never before.
Amazing. That's right.
And then we have another few from...
A little faster, Joel, because
Yeah.
of time?
We have some
He
from
black.
whatever. Okay, so there's more too. I'm trying to go fast as I can, but some more just got put into my folder.
That's all right. You black.
And Smitty 2000 donated, and he said that Turkish beta commie from last night's fallen state made liberals seem manly in comparison.
The
Got-
Mirage.
Oh yeah, Hillary's emails. Link your channel if you like in the chat there. You got Wrench for a reason, yeah. Trying to grow your panel discussions for sure. They've been going well. I recommend everybody here go check out Hillary's emails for some good politics and religion discussions and other stuff too.
Liberace.
He black.
Ego is ego. Your ego is ego.
What did you think about Joel rapping, Adrian?
My panels have been taking place on, Hillary's because you're here, but for other people on Sundays, I guess, when I don't have band practice, it's generally been a good day for me to host for a couple hours. Yeah, Heat Black, there's multiple remixes dedicated to this particular discussion here. JLP's a funny guy. He's got some very funny isms.
Yeah,
It was interesting.
So-
I didn't catch on that there was raps happening because at first I heard just the trippy beat.
he black.
Everybody's using that every time they see me at church.
Right?
That's
In the
like
live chat, it's
saying.
always
It's like, he black.
black.
They see me
Joel
at
black.
church, they just say, he black. I'm like,
It's even in the super chats.
He black.
it's not.
Even though Joel think he's white.
I'm 30%.
He black.
He black.
Brandon Johnson in the chat says, Joel needs Hooked on Phonics.
I'm telling you, he black. And he's younger than I am. He went to school.
Can I make one last comment?
No. Yesterday, Joel admitted he was dating. I had 4 ladies, 2 on the phone, who were disappointed that you were dating. They couldn't believe it. They thought they had a chance. He black.
We have supporters on Subscribestar. Thanks
Yeah.
to Jayukata Ki.
He black. Are you blessed or cursed? Are you blessed or cursed? That's my biblical question.
I'm blurst.
And Joel, he blessed.
And the good old Christian humor there. That's legit right there. You're blurst, man.
I need Billy down here to tell me about the phone line. He's up there just sitting there while we're having issues. Where's Billy? Let me go to Billy.
Hey guys. We here again. You know, I might play some music while we wait, you know? Pass some time. So, just bear with
It's your show, Jesse.
this. We trying. We black.
These guys are- So yeah, that's that. Leave it there. You get the idea.
Like Sleepy McStreamy over there.
All right, let's criticize an atheist.
Let's get this started. I'm going to do this a little early today. I had going to do it at 6
Time to
o'clock.
turn
but
the tables.
I have
Eat your
seen
own.
the last couple of days. Somebody sent me a clip of the Atheist Experience with Paula Gia and Matt Dillahunty, which pretty much has solidified my position that Matt Dillahunty is not somebody who just doesn't understand these things. I think he does, but it's just full on lying for new atheism. That I'm going to be showing you guys that just it's the only word I think fits what he's doing. It's pure sophistry. Like I said, I want to get it under a half. I don't know, placate to an audience or try to just do sophistry. So it's the only word I think fits what
This guy's been going forever, and this is a terrible way to begin a video.
he's doing. It's pure sophistry.
So his mic's cutting in and out. He's not on camera, so you can't really tell what's going on here.
To the public,
The
Dillahunty
music.
is not somebody who just doesn't understand these things. I think he does, but it's just full on lying for new atheism. And so
What?
we'll
How
have
long
a
has he
lot
been
to talk
talking?
about. I had going to do it at 6 o'clock, but Erin has something streaming on her channel with Tina. I don't think I'm going to finish at 30 minutes, but I'm sure try. I don't have a
so impatient right now. I'm like, where does this fucking video begin? That was terrible. The mic's just gonna be cutting in and out the whole intro.
All right, let's get this started. I'm going to do this a little early today. I had going to do it at 6 o'clock, but Erin has something streaming on her channel with Tina. I don't think I'm going to finish at 30 minutes, but I'm going to sure try. I don't have a lot to talk about. I just wanted to go over a few things that I have seen in the last couple of days. Somebody sent me a clip of the Atheist Experience with Paula Gia and Matt Dillahunty, which pretty much has solidified my position.
Yeah, if Mike does shit like that in the fucking intro, like, I would hope people inside chat would tell me. Usually, sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. It's like, whoa, man, that's some really bad mic issues there. You should just start over.
And that Matt Dillahunty is not somebody who just doesn't understand these things. I have seen in the last couple of days, somebody sent me a clip of the Atheist Experience with Paula Gia and Matt Dillahunty, which pretty much has solidified my position that Matt Dillahunty is not somebody who just doesn't understand these things. I think he does, but it's just full on lying for new atheism. And so I want to do a quick stream on it to kind of get that out there to the public. Basically, a couple things he's also said on Twitter that I'm going to be showing you guys that just boggles my mind, because he's been told these things so many times. He's even talked about these things, and yet he seems like he keeps going backwards to try to I don't know, placate to an audience or try to just do sophistry. So it's the only word I think fits what he's doing. It's pure sophistry. Like I said, I want to get it under a half hour if I can. If not, if it goes over, that's fine. This content is kind of a lot different than what Erin's doing on her channel with Tina. But I do want people to watch Erin and Tina's video, because it's, kind of a history of what happened with a few things that went down on the internet. But I'm not going to dive into that. But I am doing a stream tonight at midnight with Erin, if you guys want to join that. It will be showing emails that have never been shown. So anyways, let me give you a setup on this. Somebody has sent me this clip here. And basically, they thought the caller made some errors, which they kind of did. And they thought Matt made some errors, which it kind of did. But I think Matt was actually kind of right on most of this. So I don't want to like crap on him completely. He did get some things very, very much correct. But
wait, so you just said he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just engaged in sophistry. But now you're like, oh, well, he's right, but he made some errors.
The problem is that when he talks about this stuff on Twitter and some other things, he makes some fundamental, again, I don't even want to call them mistakes, because they're not mistakes, they're lies. They're no longer
on Twitter.
Longer mistakes. He knows the subject matter. He understands the epistemological underpinnings of these things. He understands the philosophy. He's not stupid in that department. So the only explanation I have is he's being sophistic and he's just doubling down. He's lying. That's it. So I'll see what you guys think on it. But anyways, this was from the Atheist Experience the other day with Paula Gia. Paula Gia does nothing wrong on this. Paula Gia is one of the best, I think, atheist apologists, if you want to call it that, especially for somebody who talks about young Earth creationism. And
I would call an atheist apologist like an anti-apologist. That would make sense.
He's against it. He is one of the best. And so I don't watch the Atheist Experience. I don't know how he interacts on the Atheist Experience. I've only seen this particular clip, and I didn't see any issues with Paula Gia. So, of course, I have nothing to add about that. But Matt, of course, there is a few things that he says I kind of question. But let's kind of dive into this. So let's do this first before I get into the Twitter stuff that he was just completely wrong on. And let me know if you guys can hear this just fine. Actually, you can hear it just fine. I already know you can't. Say 1 sec. Come on, Steve, get all this together before you go live. The problem is I had all this together, but unfortunately my
Good God.
Unfortunately my internet wasn't working too well, and then it just all of a sudden came back and was working fine. So I apologize for my attempt earlier. Here we go.
The call? I'm ready. I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to take this call, and he's calling specifically for me. I'm fine. I got copy. And then
Paul's like, hey, I've seen the show before. The co-host usually sits here, does nothing while you do everything, Matt, anyways, right?
Then we'll dig on other things. So, Clarence.
Well, there's a reason you're host and co-host, right? So, kind of I don't know if that's a valid criticism or not.
Welcome to the show, kind of. We had a brief discussion before.
The reason that Matt was a compelling host, right? Or is a compelling host, not with the Atheist Experience anymore, but other shows as well, right, is because he is highly engaged with whatever, you know, people bring to the table. He's able to guide conversations in such a way, you know. So that's the reason he's good at what he does, which is the reason he held the job, you know.
The show started where Clarence called me a narcissistic sociopath and then a coward. But
okay, I have to pause there. I don't think. Well, shoot. I don't think Matt's a narcissist. I think he's an egotist. I think he has a massive ego. But there is a difference between egotism and narcissism. People like Kyle is a narcissist. People like Amber Heard are narcissists. People like narcissists. But he has the ego the size of Texas. Is he a coward? No, I don't think he's a coward. I mean, he does engage with a lot of people. I would have to say that he doesn't engage with people that will probably show that he has errors that he doesn't want to be shown, right? But I'm not going to go so far to call him a coward.
He's got this point about the logical absolutes.
So, you know, we're going to obviously listen to Steve psychologize Matt and kind of go through all these claims here being made. But his specific claim in this video is that Matt Dillahunty is a liar. He is lying for New Atheism. So that's what we're going to get into. That's what we're going to focus
Which
on.
aren't absolutes, they're misnamed.
If we get deeply into this video.
Oh, that's not necessarily
I'm happy
true.
to address it.
They are called the logical absolutes. They're not misnamed. They are absolute in the classical schema. When you're dealing with intentional logic or classical logic, they are called the logical absolutes. They are absolutely true in all possible worlds. So I don't know why he said there that they're not logical absolutes. Now, people can argue they're not laws of logic. That may be true, right? That calling them laws of logic is somewhat of a misnomer, but I don't have any issue with calling them logical absolutes. Of course they're logical absolutes because they're true in all possible worlds by necessity. No, I maybe that's quibbling. Maybe that's quibbling, and I'll accept that. But I don't have a problem with them being called logical absolutes. I don't see that as a misnomer. Laws of logic, sure, that it is a misnomer. They're principles of logic.
So what's your point here, Clarence?
Hello, Christian Carpenter. Good afternoon and good to see you.
It's welcome.
Thank you, kind of. You have often made the point that one can either has to be convinced or unconvinced of the existence of a God. And the point I'd like to make is just very simple. In order to be convinced or unconvinced, the word convinced implies that you have considered the issue and are either convinced or unconvinced.
Okay, and I happen to agree with that. Convinced is synonymous with believe. You can use them interchangeably. Belief is the word for an epistemic disposition when you hold the propositional content is true. And to believe something, you are convinced of it. If I believe something, it is denoting that I am.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's correct here, right? And that's the difference between, all right, so there's subsets of like, you can know that somebody says something is true and not believe that it is true. And you can know that somebody said something was true and believe that it is true. So you have that distinction there, right? And then you can not know that somebody had said something, right? Or made a claim or whatever it is. So there's a further distinction like between things that you don't know.
Convinced of it, right? You can't say I believe A equals A, but I'm not convinced of it. That would be a contradiction. That makes no sense, right? So it is true. You either believe a proposition or you do not believe a proposition. There's no argument there. Matt has repeated that numerous times, and he's not wrong on that. And Clarence is not wrong on that. Both of them are correct on that. Oh, and by the way, to be aware of the proposition, you still either are someone who believes it or you don't believe it. But you'll see here that what they're going to try to argue is that if you're unaware of the proposition, then this doesn't apply, which is not quite the case. If you're unaware of something, that means you don't believe the proposition if you're unaware of it. The problem is I think Matt uses a very bad analogy here, and we'll get into that here.
Yeah, so the proposition that you're unaware of, I didn't even like prep for this at all, but yeah, that was where my mind went. Right?
However, it is possible for people to exist, and people have existed, and I can give several examples. People exist who are totally unfamiliar with the concept of a God. And someone who is totally unfamiliar and has never even been exposed to the concept of a God is neither convinced or unconvinced.
That's not true.
Because
That's not true.
Now, again, I am fair when I'm being fair. Matt is correct on that. Matt is correct. If you're someone who doesn't know about the proposition, you are unconvinced of that proposition. You are epistemically unaware of it.
It's time to stop looking stressed. Look blessed. You may not be where you want to be, but you're not where you
of it. There's no such proposition to you to have a position on, right? Graham Oppy calls that position innocent towards P, innocent towards the proposition. A person who is innocent towards the proposition does not believe the proposition because they are unaware of the proposition, right? That is a strict dichotomy. You believe or you don't believe. There are no other options in classical logic. So if there are no other options in classical logic, you believe or you don't believe, you don't get to all of a sudden have this third position that doesn't exist, even if you.
Okay, yeah, but we've included. I mean, it's logical to say that you don't believe, but you don't believe because you have no knowledge of the proposition. So you can't be guilty of a thing that you were unaware was, there.
Even if you don't know about the proposition. Now, there are some interesting nuanced exceptions, but only under the guise of if the categories don't actually exist. For example, a theological non-cognitivist would argue that they are neither theist nor not theist, which would be, to us, epistemically impossible. But to them, those categories are not even categories to even exist in. There's nothing to exist in, right? That's how the theological cognitivist, I think, would look at a position of what is theism, what is not theism. They're incoherent categories. Therefore, they would not be in either one of them because they're not categories to actually be in. But there's a difference there because they're saying that the categories are meaningless. It'd be like saying, an example I could think of would be something like, are you in the category of colorless green ideas that sleep furiously, or are you not in the category of colorless green ideas that sleep?
Well, I mean, I think it's just to say that the category isn't all inclusive, right? So it just says that this category doesn't cover, it covers X, but it doesn't cover Y and Z. And so therefore we have to add those things into our list of entailments, or we have to create a new category, like some kind of subset that incorporates those concepts, right? So as soon as we have new knowledge, we have to add it and figure out which bucket we're going to put it in, right? We're not going to discard that knowledge unless we have good reason to believe that it's bullocks, and then we would discard it. But until we have good reason to believe that, we would create a bucket and we'd say file that over here.
Furiously.
Which would fall under like the category of things that people claim that are true that I still disbelieve, but I know that other people claim they are true, right? I don't discard that knowledge. I file it over here into this bucket.
What does that even mean? Those are not actual categories. They're categories that don't exist, right? They're incoherent categories. That's how I would look at the theological non-cognitivist position. But just being unaware of a proposition, then you clearly can't believe something you don't know about, right? So I happen to agree with Matt on this particular part.
The word unconvinced.
No, we're pausing right here. You seem to be confused in equating the notion of not being convinced with being disconvinced or something. All I'm saying is that for any proposition, you are either convinced of that proposition or you are not convinced. This is a/not a scenario, and those are the only options.
He is correct.
So if someone says, are you convinced of Fergelbergel, and you've never heard Fergelbergel, you don't know what a proposition is, then you cannot possibly be convinced of it.
Well, and this is where it starts getting a little bit interesting, that if you haven't heard of the proposition, that's not the same as the proposition not existing completely, like in a theological cognitivist position, right? But I at this part, Matt is arguing, look, here's the proposition. but you're not aware of it. You're not. I haven't even told you what anything about Fergal Burgle. So at that point, yeah, you don't believe something if you're unaware of it, right?
Uncovering healthy habits can happen at any moment. Like the moment Raul turned a regular Sunday afternoon at home into a...
If you're unaware of it.
I get it. It was showing a Steve McRae vid. I wondered where the other voice came from. Yeah. So we're actually, so Steve McRae claims that Matt Dillahunty is lying here on this episode of the Atheist Experience. This is a little bit dated. But I had saved this because when I was watching it at the time, I was like, oh, I don't see where your claim that Matt is lying comes from. So he's and there's other probably personal reasons he's attacking Matt Dillahunty here or something, but I was just kind of addressing that criticism. I thought it'd be a good change of pace. But yeah, this is from Steve McRae's channel. This is like, how does this now? How do I do that thing? Oh, there we go. Yeah, this is from June 2022. So.
Right?
I don't know if he's addressed this further. Other people probably called him out on it at some point.
Somebody asked, hey, hello, Brian, how are you? He says, wouldn't that person has never heard of the proposition an ichtheist, theological cognitivist? Well, okay. So personally, I have a slight differentiation between ichtheist and theological and cognitivist. Don't take this as gospel. This is just what I infer from the literature, because there's some vagueness evolving these terms. The ichtheist would say that any God talk is meaningless. In other words, it doesn't have any really cognitive meaning to it. It doesn't have any context or meaningful.
John says, LOL, I was driving on a sketchy trail and ripped half my bumper off. I just got back on. Oh, wow. Glad you're okay, John Papiano. Close call there.
It. Now, the theological cognitivist would...
Well, I mean, I guess sorry about your bumper, but I'm glad you're okay.
Say that a proposition dealing with that particular subject matter is non-truth apt, meaning that it cannot be assigned a truth value of true or false. Are they related? Yes. Do I think that all ichtheists seemingly have to entail theological cognitivism? Yes. I think they're codependent on each other in some ways. I don't know how you'd be an ichtheist to say that God talk is meaningless, but you would hold a proposition relating to God truth apt. That would seem to be...
Steve is reading his own
it's a little bit different
here.
than the ichtheist who just says all God talk is meaningless. But there is relationship there, right? And they are used interchangeably in many contexts, which I don't have a problem with. I think for all practical purposes, they can be used interchangeably. But I do have a slight nuanced distinction in the literature of one being used specifically more to talk about when somebody doesn't think the God talk is meaningful.
I believe that Matt held a position of anti-theist, but I'm not sure now. I thought he had said that at one point, but I could be wrong on that. But either way, Steve is arguing from multiple positions that I'm not sure whether Matt Dillahunty holds those positions or not. So it's like it's supposed to be a full deconstruct, right? But he's also deeply engaged with the chat at this point.
Opposed to somebody who thinks that the proposition with a God talk is not truth apt. Does that make sense?
So you are still in the
Hey, Kenny. Hope you're well. Hope you're well out there, Dr. Kenny Rhodes, from Reasons to Believe, that I used to do a show with years. Well, I guess it's been about 2 years now.
You're neither convinced or unconvinced.
I know. Let me know what you think there, Kenny, of this so far.
Oh, you're saying that. I know you're saying that, Clarence, but you're wrong. I have. Let's.
Well, we disagree then.
Hey, would you stop
Well,
talking?
clearly they disagree.
Okay. Did you think we were going to agree, Clarence?
Don't know. I thought maybe you would consider my argument and agree with it.
I did consider it, and I'm explaining to you. I did consider it, and I'm explaining to you why it's wrong.
And Clarence is wrong. I mean, up to this point, Matt is absolutely correct. Would you guys agree that Matt is correct so far?
Would you like me to do that, or do you want to just sit here and be confident in yourself without being rebutted?
I would be glad to listen to it. Go ahead.
Good. Then shut the fuck up.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have written down on my table here a proposition. You have no idea what that proposition is, do you?
والله العظيم
والله
العظيم حق بنات عاد.
He's gonna go back.
I have no idea what that proposition is, do you? That was a question.
Okay, do you see where he's going with this? This is where I think it jumps the shark. Now, this may be a little nuanced here, so work with me here, okay? I'm gonna try to explain this the best I can, the way I'm visioning this. Let's say he writes a proposition down on paper. Let's say the proposition is A equals A, right? Now, being unaware of that proposition that he wrote down is not the same as being unaware of the proposition itself. I'm aware of the proposition A equals A, but I'm not aware of the proposition of what he wrote down, right? There's a big difference there. There's a big difference in what he is. If the question was, are you familiar with the proposition? The answer is yes. Are you familiar with the proposition that Matt wrote down? As in, do you know what he wrote down? Then no, right? There's a difference of, I would have, the word I guess would be ignorance. You're ignorant of what the proposition is. So when he says, hey, you don't know what proposition I have here, I'd be like, no, I don't. But if it's a proposition that I'm aware of, then I either believe it or you don't believe it. I cannot give you I cannot tell you if I believe it or don't believe it, because I don't know what you wrote down. I am without information about what you wrote down, but that doesn't mean I'm unaware of the proposition itself. You see the equivocation there? There's a nuanced but distinct difference there that I've seen.
Are you going to answer the question?
I have no idea what that proposition is.
Okay.
Right.
Are you convinced that my proposition is true?
And my answer to him on that would be, I cannot answer that question. I may believe it, but I'm not aware of what you wrote down. That doesn't mean I'm not aware of the proposition. That's what innocence on P means, that you're unaware of the actual existence of the proposition, not what he wrote down.
I am neither convinced or unconvinced because...
Okay, so now the proposition exists, but you don't know what it is, and then you don't know that there's a proposition at all, but that seems like a pretty minute...
That's not what I asked. That.
And this is where I think both of them talk past each other. It's not that he's neither convinced or not convinced, right? What Clarence should be saying is this. I am either convinced or not convinced, but I don't know which one it is because I don't know what you wrote down. Yes, I fall into one of those two categories. If it's a truth app, something that, exists, as a category that exists something, right? If you actually wrote down a category or a proposition, right? If you didn't write down a proposition, then obviously, I don't.
It's the distinction between, okay, I know you said something, but I don't know what you said, or, I don't know that you said something. But either way, you don't know what it is, so why would you try to make a judgment on something you have no knowledge, no knowledge of what the content of it is? Even if you know content is there, but you don't know what the actual content is, why would you make a judgment on it? It doesn't make sense.
Have a position on it. If he just wrote down the number 6 and he asked me, you either, believe the proposition or you don't, I'm like, what does that mean? I don't know. Yeah, I believe that 5 exists or something, but there's something that I neither believe or don't believe something that's not propositional, right? Because it has to be propositional to be believed or not believed, right? So it only can be believed or not believed if it's propositional. If it's not propositional, then neither one of them exists. Same thing with the theological cognitivists. They would say that neither those categories exist. You can't believe something or not believe something if it's not a proposition, right? So that's how I kind of work in the theological and cognitivist position. They say, well, I'm not a theist, nor am I not a theist. And people say, well, how are you neither? Because they're holding that neither category actually exists. To them, it's saying, I'm in the category of, 5 or not 5. But that's not a proposition. It's not 5 is not a proposition. That's not the same as saying negative 5, by the way. But is 5 true? What does that mean? Is not 5 true? No, those are not propositional content. So this is what I'm saying. It to me, it takes a little bit of nuance to suss these things out, which is very difficult to do when you're calling on these shows. But right now, I think they're talking past each other, right? But let me know. Do you guys follow along so far? Or do you think that I'm right on this? And by the way, I may not be. This part right here, is very, very nuanced. When I get to the Twitter stuff where I can show Matt completely is lying, that's where the fun starts. This is kind of just an entry thing because somebody has sent it to me.
That's not what I asked you, dishonest fuck. I said, are you, in fact, convinced that my proposition is true?
I don't know.
That's a yes or no question.
I am neither convinced or unconvinced.
Clarence.
No, it's not a yes or no question. It is yes or no that you either are, but whether you believe that or not, what position you have, you can't say what position you have on it. That's how can I say what position I have on something if I don't know what you're asking? You know, like I said, if you wrote down the color, if you wrote down the number 5 and said, you know, are you convinced this is true or not? I'm like, I don't know. How can I know whether I'm convinced or not if I don't know what you wrote down is proposition or not? Right? So.
This is a yes or no question. I didn't say, are you unconvinced? I said, are you convinced? And so if I say, are you convinced? And you say, I'm neither convinced, then your answer to my question is no, you are not convinced. Correct?
Incorrect. I am neither convinced or unconvinced.
You are flat.
How? I don't understand that. Again, this is where they're talking past each other, right? This is literally where they're talking past each other. It is true that you're either convinced or you're not convinced, but that doesn't mean that you know which one it is if you don't know what the proposition is.
Wrong, and I will explain this to people who are going to be honest and discuss it.
Clarence, I need you to stop. I need you to not use the word.
Oh my God, Paul is so loud. He's got this super duper mic and super duper gain, and he's got this really professional radio voice that just blows my eardrums off.
Word unconvinced again during this call because that's the problem. You're using this word unconvinced. What I need you to only use the phrase non-convinced, okay? Because the phrase unconvinced is where you're going completely.
I don't see a difference personally there. Unconvinced, not convinced. I don't particularly see a difference in the semantics there. If you're unconvinced, you're not convinced.
Completely off track.
What? Fucking hell. I guess one could pertain to like, right? So one could pertain to a deconstruction of the previously existing belief, which happens to be Matt's position, right? But if you are taking the position that the belief was never constructed in the first place, so there is no process of deconstruction, right? Then you would be not convinced.
There's one single video that's responsible for leading over 2,000 Christian men to permanently quitting.
So just if you can not use that for the rest of the call and just say non-convinced, all right?
I have a statement written down. Do you believe that that statement is true? Are you in fact convinced that this statement is true right now?
The answer would be, it is unanswerable, Matt, because you are unaware of what was written down. It is in fact, I am convinced, or I am not convinced of what you wrote down, but I don't know what you wrote down. Right? There's a difference in what is being discussed here. The proposition itself, yes, if you wrote down a proposition and I'm aware of that proposition, then yes, I'm either convinced or not convinced. But I don't have the information of what proposition you're talking about. Yeah, it is kind of pettifogging. I no offense to Paul, I just don't understand the difference between, if you say you're unconvinced, then you're not convinced. I don't see the distinction, right? But I don't know would be the right answer. Yeah, I don't know. Are you convinced? I don't know if I'm convinced. I don't know what the proposition is. You know, it's like saying, if I said, hey, Sarah,
I think that kind of boils down like a lot of the arguments I've heard from Matt Dillahunty and a lot of other atheists is that I don't know what you mean by God, or you're not consistent with what you mean by God. So, therefore, they're saying the same thing. I don't really know what you mean by that. So I couldn't reasonably tell you whether I was convinced or not.
I have a thought in my head. Do you believe, what my thought is? Do you agree with my thought? And you're like, I don't know what your thought is. I may.
My awesome life says this is weird. Yes, it is. I used to watch the Atheist Experience every Sunday, and if I didn't catch it on Sunday for some reason, I would watch it on Mondays for probably a good 3 years, and so a lot of other weird things have happened around that circle. But that's how I got kind of in touch with a lot of people in this YouTube sphere, was other people who watched the Atheist Experience with Matt Dillahunty. And a lot of those people now have YouTube channels of their own.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a thought in your head and it's propositional, you either believe it or you don't, but you have no idea what I'm thinking. It is a non-answerable question. I think this is a very, very sophistic example that Matt is using. And I'm still gonna give the guy a little bit of principle of charity. I can't after you see the Twitter stuff. I cannot. His principle of charity is shot. But we haven't got there yet. But for right now, I'm going to give Matt a little bit of credit, and maybe he really thinks this is a good example. I don't. I think that it is. This is sophistry. right? But you know, what do you guys think?
I don't know because I don't know the statement.
No.
By the way, I'm just going to say this once: play nice in the live chat with each other. I don't need any of that other stuff. So just play nice, or you get timed out. I don't care who you are. And hi, Sarah. So just.
You do know that you are not convinced.
No, the word convinced implies that I am familiar with the statement and that I've considered
Yes,
it.
in order to become convinced. Fine, I'm muting you. Yes, in order to become convinced, you have to be familiar with the statement.
Yeah, you have to be familiar with the statement, but not what you wrote. There's a difference between the statement and what you wrote down. These are conceptualization issues. I could be familiar with what you wrote down as the concept in my head, but I don't know what it is you wrote down.
And then the weight of the evidence in favor of that proposition has convinced you. But until you've been presented with the proposition, you are not convinced. And until you've been presented with sufficient evidence, you are also not convinced.
Okay, let's follow that reasoning there, Matt. Let's say you wrote down the proposition A equals A, and I use that because it's just so easy. It's so simple, right? You know, it's obviously, except if you're John Richardson from the Atheist Alliance International, he's the only person I think argues that A does not equal A ontologically, which is bizarre. But most people that are rational assume, A equals A, right? So it's a very simple proposition, right?
Well, A equals A, I guess, I think I understand the position that this person takes, right? A equals A as long as we agree that A equals A. So there's no objective moral, or no objective fact there. Not a moral fact, but, the fact in of itself is that we agree that A is A.
And some people argue a proposition requires a little more syntactical content to it.
No, I'm starting to understand the argument. Good.
That's fine and dandy. I'm not trying to be a pendant on it. So to me, A equals A is propositional. If you want to argue, it doesn't have the right.
Yeah, so this is philosophical argumentation. Yeah, Steve does that kind of thing. So he has this thing, the great debate community. A lot of people some people that I know or have been acquainted with were a part of that community. Basically, Steve has been ousted by a lot of people. So he's kind of persona non grata in certain circles. I still listen to him on occasion, but I haven't really interacted with him. But, I've heard he is problematic on different things, but I'm not addressing that. I just wanted to. Again, just this particular argument where he says that Matt Dillahunty is lying for new atheism is kind of what we're looking at. But yeah, just putting that out there because there's a lot of talk about people platforming other people and such. Steve is another creator who has a far larger platform than I do, so I don't think I'm muddying the waters here. I don't think Matt Dillahunty is lying. So I'm still, we'll say I'm still on the side of Matt Dillahunty in this instance, and I'm still a fan of his professionally as far as what he does. I don't agree with all of, everything he says. It's rare that you find somebody that you agree with 100% on everything or whatever, and that's not really the objective anyway. But, more often I think Matt is correct in his arguments, and so that's the way I lean on this. But I'm just saying, as far as whether I take sides on that whole kerfuffle in the YouTube sphere and stuff that's a negative. I don't take sides in that type of stuff, especially if I'm not involved in it. If it doesn't personally involve me, I don't think I should have to take sides in that. There's no kind of moral high ground there, right? Like you just kind of try to navigate it in a non-biased way and try to be like an objective judge in the situation. Hillary's email says he just needs to add, quote, under standard conditions, end quote. Yeah. John Fabiano says, is Matt saying that Christians are convinced of what's written in the Bible unconditionally? So I think what the caller was arguing, when the caller came in, his argument was that you could not be guilty of something that you were unaware of, right? Which is what Steve keeps reiterating here. That's what he said when he first called in. And Matt is saying that, so Steve said it best here. They were talking past each other a bit because he agreed, but then he disagreed biblically, because biblically, according to the Bible, right, it says that you could still be guilty even if you were unaware. And I think that's the problem, is that if you look at certain area of the Bible, you could still be guilty of a sin even if you were unaware of the existence of the law, right? Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. And so I think they're kind of arguing that point. But like at this point, the other guy is trying to backpedal and Matt is pressing that issue. And so it's kind of a weird situation here. John Fabiano also says, because most haven't read it in the whole. Yeah, that came up earlier again on Tog's stream. They were reviewing I can't remember the channel name now, but anyway, there was another conversation going on about whether or not Christians knew enough of the Bible in context to claim to have sufficient knowledge, or whether they were kind of trusting certain authority figures in the church and cherry picking their arguments from favorable passages in the Bible, and they didn't know very much about it. Hillary's email says, I'd say that Matt is a dishonest fuck, in quotations, as he projected onto the caller. Matt refuses to listen and mutes any opposition. Yeah, I have seen him do that. He has raged out on the experience several times that I could think of, but again, that's over the course of years and years of it. So I think he acknowledged that at some point, that he kind of was raging on certain callers and stuff like that. Guilt by association, My Awesome Life. I don't know where you said that, so I guess that was pertaining to the video. Hillary's email says, Matt has claimed that the proposition of 2 + 2 = 4 does not exist until he makes it. No, I think that you're, again, asserting the same argument that certain things are true because we agree they are true, right? And if we said that 2 + 2 = 5 and everybody agreed on that, then that would be the truth, right? But that's just how we label 4 or 5 as a matter of like popular opinion, right? So those things, the way we label them, the way we categorize things, we all have a consensus on that because, and if we didn't, so there is a potential, reality where we disagree on that fact. And then some people think that 2 + 2 = 5 instead of 4. John Fabiano says, yesterday I cited that the deistic God is only a concept, therefore not a valid agent to argue that it is true. Well, yeah, you could argue for it, but you could never prove or disprove it. So I guess there's, it's just one of those things. Like, what are you going to do with it? No agency, yeah. Hillary's emails. You can only argue for a God that has a name and is revelatory. Well, you have to argue for that God. You have to rationalize it by its nature. Hillary's email says, I just meant that Matt was being a jerk and muting the caller in this clip. Okay, I'm not sure. I think there are some audio issues going on with Steve's stream as well. So I was kind of, I thought there might have been a little breakup or lag going on with that too. But maybe he is muting the caller in certain instances. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird and kind of broken. This crushes a lot of precept arguments, John Papiano says. And Hitler's emails, why would a god need a name, human mode of communication, or be revelatory? Oh, question to John.
Syntax to be propositional, it really depends on what I've seen in the literature, and I don't care one way or another, to be honest with you. It just is it's not relevant to me. To me, A equals A is a proposition if you think about it that way. I don't need to I don't think you really need to be that much technical, right? So because you're just basically saying, the proposition A equals A is true, or it is the case that A equals A, right? So A equals A proposition. So let's say that he wrote down A equals A. Well, I do know A equals A. I believe that, and so when he says, do you believe it or you don't believe it? Well, I believe it. Well, how can you believe it? You know what I wrote down? Because I know what A equals A is. It's a different, he's having what's called a category error.
That's only, once again, if you agree, on what A is, on that definition. You have to agree on the definition. Before you can agree that A equals A, you have to agree that A is A, right? You might be claiming that A is, a decimal point or something, right? I have to agree on definitions first.
I think. The category error is he's trying to relate the content of the proposition itself that I do believe with the content of what he wrote down, and those are two different objects. They're not the same thing.
Not being convinced of a proposition does not mean that you are convinced the proposition is false. So let's see if we can agree on that. Would you agree that if person A is not convinced that the proposition is true, that does not mean that person A is convinced it's false?
Which, of course, is correct. If you are not convinced it's true, it does not mean that you are convinced it's false. Which this part right here sets up going into the Twitter. He is actually saying right here that there allows for a third middle position, which is the position of neither believing true or false. He's literally saying right here. Well, I shouldn't say. I hate to use the word literally with him because he one time he said Steve needs to stop using literally as figuratively, and I showed him all this documentation about how literally is actually used as the word figuratively in modern vernacular because words have usages, and he's actually being prescriptivist on it, which he labeled me a prescriptivist. I'm like, dude, I'm a total descriptivist, and he's trying to mislabel me dishonestly as a prescriptivist, and I'm like.
There's some personal animosity there, just a little bit.
I mislabeled me dishonestly as a prescriptivist. And I'm like, words have usages. And the word figurative, literally, is also used to denote figuratively. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not a grammar Nazi. I don't particularly think that language has to be specific.
I'm not a grammar Nazi. I'm a philosophy Nazi.
Say if you're going to use certain terminologies, this is the ramifications for it. That's when I wrote.
Oh, what was this? John Papiano said, Matt is a self-proclaimed asshole for show. Hillary's email says, why would a god need a... Oh, no, I read that one. Hillary's email also said, Matt said, quote, I'm muting you, you dishonest fuck, and everyone else can listen. Yeah, he's the host of the show. I mean, he can do that. I've seen other people do that in live streams, and I mean, it's fine. Like, if you're coming on somebody else's show, I don't see why... that would be, like if at some point they get, they just, fuck you, I'm going to hit the mute button. I cannot post a join link, Hillary's emails. I'm on Prism, so Prism doesn't allow for guests. So since I'm doing this from the phone, unfortunately, because I'm not in the anyway. I don't have Wi-Fi where I'm at. Is what I'm saying. So yeah, I'm doing those. Like Sunday has been my most reliable day for that, but I'm doing these in the off time when I'm back over here. John Fabiano says, because without that, God is as good as imagining you live in a mansion. It's just a thought, yeah. You'll have a mansion in the sky, right? Once you die, as long as you're a good little boy. John also says, effectively, that God is imaginary. Yep, that's faith right there, right? Even if my whole life sucks, if I am sufficiently faithful, God's going to give me a happy ending.
The refutation of the presumption of atheism by way of semiotic square of opposition. I wrote that because if you use words a certain ways, this is what happens to it. It leads to a semantic collapse, right? Lord Brian asked, am I wrong to say I don't know because I wouldn't know what you wrote down as the said proposition? Nothing wrong with that. You don't know what he wrote. Like I said, if he wrote down A equals A, and I say, well, and he says, do you believe or don't believe? I'm like, I believe. And you're like, well, how do you believe? And I'm like, you don't know what he wrote down, but you know what A equals A is. Because if he were to say, well, I wrote down A equals A, and you'd be like, well, yeah, see, I believe A equals A. You were right on it by luck, obviously. But if you said, if he says, do you believe or you don't believe? And I say, well, I don't believe. And he says, well, here it was A equals A. Then I would have either a contradiction or I'd be wrong, right? So there's a difference there. There's a distinct difference.
Well, there's also a distinct difference between somebody giving you wrong information but believing that it's true, and somebody outright, lying to you, knowing that they're lying.
Yeah, right? Udahef says, when you use the word literally as figuratively as being hyperbolic, totally fine use it. Yeah, of course, absolutely. But I remember Matt got on my case one time on Twitter. I'm like, really? The person calling me a prescriptivist is saying that. The irony, right? And by the way, I know that's not how the irony is used. So don't get on my case about that.
Hillary's emails says it's okay, you're getting my message a bit late, not knowing what I'm replying to. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I can see them over here on Prism on the one hand, but like just a blurb pops up, and then I have to look at the YouTube side. Hillary's emails ask, can a mansion exist if you don't live in it? John Fabiano replied, your mansion only exists in your mind unless you own the mansion. Yep, exactly. There's the difference between the the real and the unreal. I mean, I guess any place is a mansion if you imagine it to be, but then if you want to bring all your friends to your mansion, you'll find out the reality of that claim.
And one of those misused words, irony. But even then, it's one of those things. Well, yeah, it's. The reason certain words do have a little bit of change of meanings is because a lot of times they are misused. Your irony is misused because it's used a certain way, in literature, and then people have started bastardizing it to mean something else. And same thing with the word. What was the other word that was? The word jealousy and envy. They're kind of more synonymous nowadays in usages in literature, even though there used to be a distinction between them. If you're envious of something or someone, that means you covet what they have. You want.
No, your mansion only exists, Hillary's emails, if you can bring all your friends there. Like that's how you prove the existence.
You envy them. Jealousy is them. You're scared of them taking something away from you. If I have a beautiful girl on my arm, and some guy hits on her, and I get jealous, I'm jealous that he's going to take her away. Not that's going to happen, right? But this is called a hypothetical, guys. Hypothetical, right? Not that I would have a beautiful girl on my arm, but some guy's going to take it away, or both. Depends on who you ask, I guess.
Over time at night to repair the car or go out to rescue, you can use this finger light, press it, and it.
But that's the difference between envy and jealousy, right? One is what you want, the other one's what you're afraid you might lose. And so, in common, general parlance nowadays, those words are getting conflated so much that there is just some overlap there. They can be used synonymously, right, and interchangeably, even though that it probably wasn't the case of that 50 years ago. Isn't it ironic? Right. Don't you think? Yeah. All right, so let's continue on.
Say that again.
Yeah, if you were listening, I wouldn't have to.
I'm listening.
Here we go.
The last part. Just the last
shut up.
part.
Here, let me mute you again. Paul. I won't even use abstractions.
Okay.
Well, how do you know Paul exists? I'm just kidding.
Paul.
Do you believe Paul exists? Do you know Paul exists?
Has shit.
Paul has shit. Oh, I didn't catch that before. I could have soundbited that. You know, Paul has shit. No, I'm just kidding.
Paul is not convinced that I have $1 million in the bank. Does that mean that Paul is convinced that I do not have $1 million in the bank? That's the question.
No. Why? Because agnostic. I mean, this is what kills me. He actually has explained to people, look, if you don't believe something's true, it doesn't necessarily entail that you believe it's false. Why? Because you can believe neither. What is that position called? Agnostic.
Has Paul been presented with the claim that you have?
Goodbye, Clarence. I'm sorry that you can't be honest in this discussion. That was a simple, straightforward question. Goodbye, sir.
But you notice the sophistry there, and Clarence doesn't seem to be too exceptionally bright either. But I mean, there just seems to be some sophistry there, and there seem to be some miscommunications. And again, this is why I would never call these types of shows, right? With the atheist experience, other shows are fine, and people want to call into my shows, and that's great. But I would never call the atheist experience because they talk past each other, and it's just not worth the time. And
you're like, well, I would call into my show, but not this one. Not shows like that one. Nothing personal. My Awesome Life says Christians are holding on for that return exchange of heaven or repentance and forgiveness. Yeah. Hillary's email says Matt has lived inside of Paul. I don't know what you mean, sir. I have no idea what you're talking about. John Fabiano says the point isn't whether mansions exist or do not exist. The point is that your mansion is only a concept until you buy it. Or have that concept built, or is built, it's revelatory because it exists. Hillary's email says Matt is a bit more polished version of Darth Dawkins. Tog says agnostic is like indifference. It doesn't take away from the law of excluded middle. Yeah, well, I mean, in this context, the proposition was if you don't know the claim exists or you don't have sufficient knowledge of what the claim states, then you could still take the agnostic position, right? And I guess Matt is basically saying that it is more reasonable to take the affirmative or the negative position. Right, against, so he's saying, rather than claim that you don't know something, you should say, hey, no, I don't believe that. But, I mean, I think society makes that difficult for us. It's difficult for people to say, no, I don't believe that, because so many people say, oh gosh, what's wrong with you? And so the hard atheist stance says, wait, no, what's wrong with you? Right? Why would you possibly believe that? And so you're choosing to engage in that sense in a kind of like an intellectual battle, like if you take that route. And there's a lot of people who just don't have it in them to engage in that battle, right? So I don't know. That's kind of what I think, and I think that's why there's a lot of more people who are able to do that on the internet, like on social media and on YouTube, rather than, taken to the streets or whatever, or taking a stance against their religious boss or their non-religious employee or something, because all of that makes our social interactions more difficult. So if you could do something like this, where you can kind of explore ideas and engage in debates, and not lose your job over it, right? Or get slapped with a lawsuit or something, then I guess that's, preferable.
Matt's never going to, even if he does read my paper, which, by the way, has gotten over 400 some odd views and in the top 0.5% of all the papers read this month so far. 0.5%. It went from the top 10% to the top 5% to the top 1% to the top 5%. My paper that I wrote has been read more times than any other paper on the site from academia.edu in the last 30 days. The top 5%.
Uncovering healthy habits can happen at any moment, like clocking in a few extra moves throughout your day or sipping water instead of
The last 30 days. The top 5%. Not any other paper, but I mean within that group of 0.5%. That is amazing. Amazing. And I will let you guys know, because you're kind of to join me tonight, so I will give you a little bit of a foreknowledge on it, I guess. Dr. Demi, who I took a lot of my logical framework from, has agreed to review my paper. How awesome is that? No, informally speaking, but how awesome is that? Now I will tell you, I will go on record that if Dr. Demi says it's completely hosed, I will renounce my paper and figure out how to fix it. Because that's what an honest person does, right? Because it's based a lot on his work and Dr. Brigham Jackson's work and Dr. Oppie's work. So even though I've had a lot of PhDs with Logic review it, I don't know what detail they went in, but I mean, he knows what he's doing because it's based on his work. If he does find an error with it, I'll either correct it, and if he just says it's completely hosed, I will take my paper down because I don't want my paper to to have errors in it. I don't want to have misinformation. Why? Because I think that's honest. I think that's intellectually honest, right? So I'm telling you guys that this is why I'm telling you ahead of time, because I want to be transparent that if he finds it to have errors, I'm going to take it down. Or else I didn't have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think inherently, like, they may have, all these subcategories, like, agnostic and atheist in the side chat. Well, I think maybe Tog said atheist earlier or something. But they have all these kind of sub-brands. But, atheism makes you inherently indifferent, right? If you are unconvinced, then you are indifferent. That's just inherent in the position.
Tell you, I didn't have to mention that Dr. Demi was reading my paper. He could have said, "Hey, your paper's crap," and I could have left it up. But I just couldn't do that. I wouldn't have the conscious, what is it? In good conscience, I couldn't do that, right? So I will let you know what he says, and it may take a while. So don't expect it in any near future, because he said when he gets to it. But he was very, very nice, very, very polite, and so I appreciate that. All right, so let's move on here to the good stuff.
Okay, apparently we're moving into the good stuff. I don't know what that means. But.
All right, so this happened on, of course, Twitter, the cesspool of the internet. Now.
So Matt, tweet here says, friendly reminder, apologists are still asserting things that they cannot demonstrate, and we can all dismiss those claims with no further thought until you demonstrate otherwise. God not only isn't perfect, he isn't at all. That's like a cribbing Christopher Hitchens, right?
If my sound's all over the place, I apologize. I'm trying to be as the audio levels, I'm trying to normalize as much as possible. I've been fiddling with them because I just never seem to get them right. So if it dropped off, it probably was my noise gate. So I don't want to take the noise gate off. If it does
so
again,
somebody just told him, like almost 35 minutes into his stream, that he's been having issues with his mic.
Let me know.
I knew it wasn't just me.
Holly. Yeah, Holly. By the way, Holly, don't you have a? If I forget, don't you have something? Do you have a PhD in philosophy, Holly? If I'm recalling correctly, I don't remember. Is that you? I mean, I know Rhodes has a PhD in theology, but didn't you have a degree in philosophy, Holly? Or is I'm thinking of something else? All right, so this was something that Matt Dillahunty said, and I'm not going to go into the whole thread, but he just said, friendly reminder, apologists are still asserting things that can't be demonstrated, and we can dismiss those claims with no further thought. I don't take umbrage with that. Okay? Now, whether it can be demonstrated or not is opinion. Okay? But, if you want to dismiss something because it hasn't been, demonstrated to you, meaning non-acceptance, okay. That's based on evidentialism, and then some other reasons for that. I mean, it doesn't necessitate that. It doesn't mean that if you were presented no evidence, you never should accept something. That would be epistemologically flawed, right? It just means you can, right? You can if you choose, and I'm okay with that. I like the word you can there. Here's where it goes off the rails. He says, until you demonstrate otherwise, God not only isn't perfect, he isn't at all, implying that he doesn't exist. Now, I will ask you all in the live chat, what fallacy is this? Again, I think this is sophistry. Because, again, I used to chalk things up to just maybe he has some misconceptions. But this, again, I think he's being sophistic. I think that he knows better, right? But what fallacy is this? When you say...
argument from ignorance?
If something isn't demonstrated or not proven, I'm going to hold it to be false. Because he's saying at all, meaning that God does not exist. So if you say God does not exist until you demonstrate God exists, there's a fallacy of that, which he's well aware of. I've heard him talk about this fallacy numerous times. This is what I'm saying. This is why I think he's engaging in sophistry. Because I just don't get principal charity with him on this any longer and stuff like that. Because I think he's willing to use sophistry and lie for New Atheism TM. You guys?
I'm predicting what Steve's going to say here. I think he's going to use the argument from ignorance.
You guys know what fallacy it is? By the way, my light chat broke. Are you guys out there? Hello? It's awfully quiet out there. Give you a few seconds to catch up there. Let's see if you guys could figure that out. If I say the Jeopardy thing, content ID match.
Okay, class, today we are covering smarter ways to sing. Let's get started with the Experian app.
Can Experian help me say? If I say the Jeopardy thing, where I get a content ID match, do it syncopated so it doesn't match any content ID. Can you guys still hear me?
YouTube should be paying me for all this ad time I'm giving them.
Hello. I hear Black Swan honking. Can you hear me? Yeah, we're going to get into that, Skeptic770, that he could call the null hypothesis. Yeah, that's the next tweet, actually. It's not a Black Swan fallacy. Black Swan fallacy is basically an inductive thing that you can't ever exclude the possibility of some, bizarre or way far possibly low probability event happening with using induction. Okay, but that's not actually a fallacy. Black Swan is a misnomer. It's not a fallacy. It's not really technically a fallacy. Black Swan fallacy, and I hate the name of that because, again, it's not really a fallacy. Black Swan is just basically saying when you use induction, even things that have very low probabilities that you wouldn't expect can happen and often do happen, like finding a black swan, right? That's Black Swan fallacy. John says, you mean incredulity. No, it's not incredulity. Come on. I don't want to have to say it. I want to see. Thank you. Ozian gets it right. Yes, Ozian is correct. Gold star for you, Ozian. Argument from ignorance, also known as argumentium ad ignorantium. When you hold a position to be true, merely because it hasn't been demonstrated to be false or...
have a good stream, Hillary. I'll probably pop over there after I'm done with this.
Proven to be false. That is by definition textbook argument ad ignorantium. This is exactly what
Yeah, going on 3 hours here, so do a few more minutes here. But I appreciate y'all coming by.
He did here. He's saying that God does not exist at all because he hasn't been demonstrated. Now, if you would have just kept the top part, there would have been no issue there, right? If you want to say, look, you're asserting things that are not demonstrated, and I feel justified not to accept them. I'm justified to dismiss your claim. That's fine. Now, I wouldn't at all ever recommend dismissing something merely because somebody has not demonstrated them. That is epistemologically untenable, right? Because if I say A equals...
I think, Christopher Hitchens said it better, which was, it's not just that it's not demonstrable, but it is highly improbable, right? It's inconsistent with reality, right? And if you have that extraordinary claim, then you want the more extraordinary evidence to support it, right? That's the difference. Are you going to be easily persuaded, or are you going to be more skeptical about this claim?
A, and you say, well, you haven't demonstrated that, therefore I dismiss it, you're going to be irrational. One, you can't really demonstrate A equals A. It's a priori knowledge, right? It's not something that is empirical. It's not something that's scientific. It's not something that requires any kind of demonstration. It is an axiom. It is a principle of logic, the law of identity. So if I say A equals A and you say, well, can you demonstrate that? And I say, well, no. And you say, well, then I don't believe you. You're being irrational, right? But the evidentialist who just says, you know, you shouldn't believe anything without sufficient reason, then there's a difference there. That's somebody who says, look, I have sufficient reason to dismiss your argument, right? If I just say A equals A and I say I don't have evidence for it, and you say you don't believe me, you don't have sufficient reason to dismiss it, right? You don't have reasons to. You can't just say, well, you haven't demonstrated.
Yeah, no, like if you tell me you can walk, I'll be like, okay, that's cool. Like, so can I. I believe you, right? But if you tell me you can fly, I'm gonna be like, hey, prove it, you know? And so that's the difference.
If I dismiss it, that's not a reason to dismiss A equals A, right?
That's the claim of identity, though. That's not the same thing.
Hi there. Would you like to receive a gift? I'm a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
That's dismissing A equals God, right?
Yeah, and Kimo Maki's true. You know, Kimo Maki's, you know, he does call it fallacy. Yeah, and No True Scotsman, whether it's a fallacy or not, you know, the No True Scotsman to me is more a maneuver than a fallacy. I agree, and Flew coined, you know, when Flew was talking about the No True Scotsman, you know, he did refer to it more as a maneuver, as you know, almost similar to, it's not, but almost similar to moving the goalpost, but it's obviously not the same thing, right? Because like no true Scotsman would ever do such a thing, right? But again, I think they're using the word fallacy in a very generalized, you know, usage, which is fine. If you want to call it the no true Scotsman fallacy or the black swan fallacy, again, I'm not a prescriptivist. I personally don't think that really connotes what a fallacy actually is understood to be in the literature. So I personally don't like the term fallacy attached to those. I just don't. But I don't really care one way or another. Right? Nick says, so you got to believe anything anyone says or you're irrational. Is that what I said? Because I'm pretty sure I can review this and go back, because I don't think that's what I said. I don't think I said anything remotely like that. Where did that come from? Where did I say that, Nick Ross? Oh, wait, I didn't. I never said anything of the sort. So your question is irrelevant, because you can't ask a question on something that I didn't say. There's a fallacy for that too. If you said if you want me to repeat it, is that you don't have to. If you don't accept something, there needs to be reasons for it, right? You can't just say I don't accept what your claim is merely because you haven't demonstrated it. That's really not a great justification, right? Because if I say I claim A equals A and you say, well, I don't believe anything that's not demonstrated, well, you can't demonstrate A equals A. Right? Doesn't mean you have to believe it. This means you don't have to accept it. Not accepting is not the same as.
Well, A equals A, you know, is based once again upon agreement. We have a clear definition that this thing is this thing. The table is the table, right? The chair is the chair. If you called it by a different name, you know, we'd have to have a discussion about that, you know, right? But the question, so it's not that you would dismiss just any old claim, right? But that you would dismiss this, you know, very extraordinary claim without sufficient proof.
Believing that is false or believing that's true, right? I mean, there's a difference between not accepting and rejecting in philosophy. Rejecting means to hold false. It asserts the negation. Not accepting can either mean that you didn't believe the proposition or you hold the proposition false. So not accepting is the category. You either accept it or you don't accept it. If you don't accept it, it's because you just don't hold it true, or so you don't hold it false, or that you actually do hold it false. Does that make sense? But merely if you're not accepting doesn't mean you don't hold the opposite position. This is exactly what that video was saying from Matt. Matt was explicitly saying this. If you don't hold something as true,
and so like this is the whole question of the video, and it would be like, okay, like if you came up to me and told me you could walk, and then I'm like, okay, cool, I can do that too, right? Fine, we both accept A equals A, right? And then so in the second case, like you come up to me and tell me you can fly, and I'm like, prove it, and you're like, no, you just have to believe me. I'm like, no, I can't fly. I have no proof that you could fly. Why would I believe that claim? This is a complete non sequitur. It's like, no, you have no demonstration of this. You're just making up all the assertion to me with no demonstration. So it's not even comparable. this claim A equals A, right? Like by definition, this thing is this thing. Okay, we've agreed on the definition, and then you're making this second, claim that I can do X, right? So no, you haven't sufficiently demonstrated that X is even possible for me to then further conclude that you are capable of X, right? Any other entity might be capable of X, right? Birds can do X, but can you do X? Have I ever seen you do X? No. You're just like, believe me, bro. Believe me.
Accept it. It doesn't necessitate it does not necessitate or necessarily mean that you hold it as false. You just merely may not accept it, which is something that Matt was talking about, which is called agnostic.
And then I can call you a liar. No, I don't have to say I don't know. I'm not sure whether you can fly. No, I'm pretty fucking sure you can't fly, bro. Like, prove it, or get out of here with this third grade nonsense, like some little kid shit. No, my dad can beat up your dad.
Dick.
Prove it. Get the fuck out of here.
Right.
I don't believe you. I'm gonna say no. I'm sorry. I don't believe you. Like, that's what happened there. See that?
All right. So, moving on to the next one. He says the null hypothesis is that no God exists. Really, Matt? Can I get some citations on this? I've looked into this. I've looked into this extensively. And the only place I even see it talked about, in general, is like Encyclopedia Britannica, I think it was, and some other places that say atheists hold this, and atheists say this. But in the literature, I could not find anything that actually really represents why the null hypothesis is that no God exists. There's no justification for that. And worse, the null hypothesis is a statistical inference. It's a statistical inference. It has to do with statistics and experimentations. Okay? This is philosophy. Philosophy is not necessarily an experimental science, right? It's just not. It delegates to science how you should do experiments. The scientific method is a philosophy. Scientific methodology is a philosophy. Methodological naturalist, methodological naturalist is a philosophy, right? But the null is basically saying this is what I'm going to accept as true for an observation. I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to observe the experiment, and based upon my numbers, based upon the p-value, I'm going to see if I can reject the null as true and accept my explanation as being the case. That's more likely the case, right? That's called rejecting the null. So you have to do an experiment to reject that no God exists. And what would that experiment be, Matt? And the theist can say the opposite. They can say my null hypothesis is that God exists.
Tug says, isn't the proof was written and was what was witnessed? It wasn't for all to witness, just like salvation isn't for all to witness. So some people were created to go to hell in that theory, then,
and
right?
that they're going to do an experiment.
Some people were made to burn for eternity
on observations and see if they can reject that null hypothesis to have the hypothesis that no God exists, right? Because right now, if the null hypothesis is no,
or be ejected into oblivion, I guess there's two different versions of that. Right?
God exists, and the hypothesis is God exists, right? And I don't think even Matt would argue that if that's what he's using it. Then the hypothesis is God exists, the null is no God exists. But to a theist, it's the opposite. He would just say, look, the null hypothesis to me is that God exists, and I'm going to see if I can reject that to put forward my hypothesis that God exists.
Hi everyone, Mark Barden here at Sandy Hook Promise. On December 14th, 2012, my 7-year-old son Daniel was shot to death in his first grade classroom at Sandy Hook Elementary School. The shooter shot and killed 26 individuals in about 4 minutes using an AR-15 military-style assault rifle. There is no place, there's no need, there's no practical application for a military-style assault rifle in civilized society. Please sign the petition and urge Congress to make assault rifles illegal for civilians. There's no practical application in civilized society for assault rifles. We need your help. Please tell Congress to outlaw them now. Thank you.
Put forward my hypothesis that God exists. That's how it would work in statistical inference. Both sides of the coin have a null hypothesis for their own personal views. And that, again, only works in statistical methodologies. It has nothing to do with philosophy, Matt. And every time I see a new atheist use this type of nomenclature, I think they're bastardizing not just philosophy, but science. Craig Reed, TCR. Hey, buddy, how you been, man? He says, LOL, the null hypothesis. I saw that absurd. Yeah,
the null hypothesis is that no God exists. There's only theism and atheism. You are either convinced or not, period. Agnostic isn't some middle ground. It's about knowledge, which is a subset of belief, not a third option that violates excluded middle. And so I guess the proposition being rejected here is that you could be, right, once again, completely unaware of a hypothesis. But again, you could disagree on the definition of that hypothesis. You could say that definition doesn't appeal or suit my understanding, right, of what would be required to fulfill the duties, right? Because the duties, the function. I'd rather use the word function, I think, right? The function of the thing that you're describing to me, right? The attributes, the characteristics of the thing that you're describing don't perform the function that my understanding, right, would require for this thing to be possible or effectual, right? It would have to be something that it'd have to be something that comports with my understanding of reality. If this thing doesn't comport with my understanding of reality, right, I'm going to reject it outright. I'm going to reject it because, once again, you're challenging whatever it is that I can directly observe and demonstrate. And that's the problem. As soon as you start to insert a requirement, right? The requirement is that you reject the things that you know to be true in favor of this thing, right? If I now have to reject A, B, and C to accept X, Y, and Z, right? Then I have to weigh the consequences of rejecting that prior knowledge to accept this new belief and laying a new foundation, right? Which is why deconstruction is such a heavy process, and which is why any of these programs, that try to instill faith in people who are broken, that's what's required, is that they are completely broken, intellectually, spiritually, what have you, right? You need a broken person to start to rebuild that foundation or core belief. And that's just kind of like a basic, for somebody to have a way to navigate reality. And so for some people, this could be beneficial, right? I guess. They say they would accept this other worldview and reject the one that they had come from. Like in the case of DeRoy, if he was like a raging homosexual and he was like, oh, I just need Jesus every day, and then, I don't need to get pounded or whatever, maybe that's what people need to recover sometimes from these addictions if they find them problematic. I don't know. Like, these people find justifications for their behavior, right? But it's often found in a repression of their own reality, right? Internally, like what we feel inside, when we express outwardly, are often very disparate, right? we're afraid to tell people what we really think and what we really feel, so we create narratives that look better in our mind. They'd be more well received by other people. And that's what Christianity is. You know, it says, oh, I act this way. Look at the definition, right? To be Christ-like. To live a clean and sinless life. Or some shit like that, right? And none of them really adhere to it. They might try. But, you know, at the end of the day, if the Bible tells them they're all bound to sin, they're going to sin anyway. And there's no reason for us to believe that a human can act perfectly or be perfect. You know, like, there's just no way to do that. Our best way of learning is by making mistakes. So that doesn't make sense. John Fabiano says, it should be noted that before the scientific method was used, scientists were called natural philosophers. Just saying. Yeah. And Tog said, if someone doesn't like their behaviors, why should we care if they change that? Should we be supportive? Is that part of the transformation? If someone doesn't like their behaviors, why should we care that they change that? Be supportive. I mean, it's up to you, really. Like, whether you want to support other people or not, it's just a question of ethics, right? Like, is it ethical for you not to care for that person if you have the capacity to do so? Right? Like, if somebody asked me for $1, and I have $1, I'm not hurting for money, is it unethical for me to not give them that $1? Right? But with the question of like salvation, right? It's like much deeper. Right? You're not just sustaining somebody. It's granting somebody the greatest gift of all. You know, I guess, like if you believe that salvation is real. And, I you know, it's just, again, it's a contradiction to me to think that if God created all these people to have this experience, right, and all of these things were possible, why would God limit salvation as product of the experience, you know, to only like a select number of people? Would seem like an act of cruelty. It wouldn't reflect in all good and all loving God, to me. Maybe if you feel guilty about it, I don't think it's unethical to withhold what is yours to give away. Well, I mean, I guess that's a question of economics, you know, but if it, you know, there's two issues there. There's the economic issue, and then there's the, you know, the issue of whether or not it is virtuous to help one's fellow man or not. And I think Christianity generally says that. But, you know, with some exceptions where you do great harm as well. So I don't know. That depends on your interpretation of the Bible, bro.
Absolutely absurd. And yet, they keep on repeating this time and time again. Right? It's at this point, Matt's just lying. Sorry, Matt, you are lying. You've been explaining this numerous times. There are many, many people online that understand statistical inferences that have explained this. I've seen him do it. So I think he's just dishonest. Then he says, there is only theism and atheism. Again, he's been explained that is not the case. Now, if he were to say there is only theism and atheism, as I use these terms in my schema, I cannot fault him for that, because that would be a true statement.
So this is where he's saying that Matt is lying, right? That's just lying. Lying for new atheism.
There are many, many people online that understand statistical inferences that have explained this. I've seen them do it. So I think he's just dishonest. Then he says, there is only theism and atheism. Again, he's been explained that is not the case. Now, if he were to say there is only theism and atheism as I use these terms in my schema, I cannot fault him for that, because that would be a true statement. His schema is nonsense to me, but it would be a true statement. But he's trying to normalize this as this is the case throughout, like the literature, which is like ridiculous. This is like creationist level stuff. This is flat earth level stuff. This is like a creationist arguing that his view about kinds, right? Well, there's only kinds. There's no such thing as evolution, and phylogeny. There's just kinds. Well, in his worldview, that would be true the way he defines kinds. Whatever let's say he defines kinds as species. Okay, so he says kinds don't interbreed. Okay, well that's true because species don't, different kinds. I'm saying different kinds don't interbreed. Okay, that's true because different species don't interbreed. And I'm not talking about hybridization. We're talking about biologically reproductively isolated species, right? So assume you have two populations that are biologically reproductively isolated from each other. They cannot mate and have offspring together, okay? The creation says we're different kinds. Okay, in his vernacular, that's true. Whatever. Now, obviously, creation is a good, then just kind of, it doesn't make any sense in the long run because I think they're just, playing semantic games at that point. But this is what Matt's doing. He's doing the same thing. He's using his own personal schemas to say there's only theism and atheism. But that's not true. We know that's not true. We know there's...
But it is. I mean...
We know that.
So if you think about it, though, an uninformed agnostic is by default an atheist, right? If they have no knowledge of a religion, they can have no position for or against a thing that they have no knowledge of the proposition, doesn't make sense. So you would still be an atheist by default. You have no knowledge of God. You can't confirm or deny the existence of a thing that you have no... It doesn't make sense.
Not true.
Like that wouldn't make sense.
We know there's agnostic, which is neither theist or atheism in the academic literature, which is logically the case that many, many actual experts on these topics have written about. Right? Dr. Demi, Dr. McCormick, Dr. Draper, Dr. Oppie, Dr. Demi, Dr. Bridget Guest Jackson, Dr. Rowe, Dr. Blackwell, Dr. Smart, JJC Smart. I believe wrote about it. And even Martin, Flew, and Bullivant, who happens to be a theist, all would prefer people use atheism in the sense that it is merely a lack of belief. But I've never seen any of them argue that in the academic literature there's only theism and atheism. None of them. All four major advocates, and by the way, all of them are dead now, unfortunately. Flew is dead. Smith passed away not too long ago. I think last year, wasn't it? It wasn't that long ago. I thought he had died a long time ago.
That's enough of that fucking nonsense. So yeah, I see no evidence that Matt Dillahunty is lying, and I think we've done away with this nonsense here. Anyway, okay, well that's enough out of me. I see my time is running out, and so is yours. We're always running out of time here, Trusty 8 Podcast. Wherever you are, I hope your day ends well, and you just be kind to other people. Be kind, and be well yourself. Also, stay trusty. This is where we sign off, and say what needs to be said. Obviously Steve McRae is wrong, but he's got a lot of feelings. He's got a lot of feelings about things. We have to respect his feelings. He has the right to say what he says on YouTube, as long as he's following the TOS and all of that good stuff. We'll just let him have his little soapbox over there. That's fine. Sometimes he says some intelligent things, but other times, like any of us, he can become derailed. People get derailed. But you know, that's life. Alright, well, it's about that time. Signing off. Have a safe and happy, healthy rest of your week. Remember to take your vitamins. Bye-bye.